With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
We're ready to go for another hectic Monday of Precision Racing League action. And first here at the Circuit of the Americas, the LMP3s and GT4s will dance just where Formula One had its action this past weekend. And of course, coming up later, the GTPs and the LMP2s roll their way down the Mulsanne at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Hello everyone, welcome to RaceSpotTV. Delighted to have your company where it's not DJ Clark, it's Arjuna Kankipati alongside Joey Tebben as we get ready to go racing. But Joey, Circuit of the Americas, Texas, they always know how to do things a little bit bigger over here.
And this is a bigger track than we've been to for the past couple weeks. It means longer lap times, more corners, less traffic interaction, but it's going to be far more difficult for each individual class to keep the cars on the track. There was a lot of talk about track limits over the F1 weekend. Unfortunately, you know the viewers love track limits. We're going to be talking even more about that tonight because you're going to have to become, you're going to have to listen to that incident limit. You don't want to get a drive-through. You don't want to be at the behest of track limits here either.
And it's going to be quite easy, you'd expect as well, but given that the temperature is usually quite warm out there on the track, they're just hovering under 40 degrees Celsius. We'll talk about those in the inferior Imperial units later. Of course, coming after a couple of tight and twisty tracks, of course, these drivers started at the Circuit de la Sarthe back at the middle of September. But after this, second half of the season underway here, Fuji, Donington, Zandvoort with its new banking, of course, and Interlagos to close. There are a couple more tight and twisty tracks to come, Joey, but some of these fast belters still to play.
Well, I'm very excited about round 8 because that's not just regular flavor Donington. That's the national circuit that cuts out the little chicane. It cuts out the appendix of the track. Sub 1 minute lap times with multi-class traffic. That's going to be like nothing else we've ever seen. It's going to be like a multi-class oval. I am very excited for that race. I point it out every week, and now we're only 2 weeks away. You better start getting ready for chaos.
I'm just saying, whoever thought that one up really did expect plenty of chaos, that is for sure. Let's talk you through the driver standings, of course, starting with the LMP3s, where 5 for 5. There's not much else to say for Sean Campbell at the very top, but give credit to Adam Brockway, who is only 16 points back right now, but of course, one of the drop rounds has already been factored in. Alex Bergstrom a further 4 points back in the fellow Maradness M Squad contingent. It's been a fascinating hunt at the front for Sean Campbell so far as he tries to continue his 100% record in this LMP3 machine.
And something that has to be remembered, it looked similarly dominant for Wayne Castile in this series last season. He won the championship. He won the majority of the first 5 races of the season, but eventually he was beaten by Alex Bergstrom to wins. He was beaten by Adam Brockway to wins. Both of these guys could still win races this season. They need to hope for a little bit of bad luck from Sean Campbell, though, or just a little bit of an off week if they want to finally get their first win of the season. So far, Sean has looked totally unbeatable, unfortunately.
And today, where traffic maybe won't be such a factor, it's going to have to be pace that plays things out. Of course, 2 classes to talk about. This is how the GT4s run as well, where Alexis Moisan, who's not necessarily been 5 for 5, but has definitely shown the pace to be able to do so, currently leads but only 8 points clear of Graham Wildman. The fan favorite Augustin Guanari is behind with Jared Farrell, and then Michael Poblano through the rest of your top 5. Ultimately, these GT4 machines are often at the behest of the LMP3 cars, Joey, as to where and when they want to make decisions in traffic.
It all comes down to survival with LMP3s coming through, but it's kind of all come down to survival for Alexis Moisan this season as well. He hasn't won every single race like he did in the GR86 series last season, because week 1 made a fuel mileage mistake, didn't save enough fuel, had to make an extra stop, and then a couple of weeks ago, Graham Wildman got pole at Phillip Island, led the majority of the race. Moisan made a mistake behind him, hit the instant limit, and lost. He's been human this season. It's going to take a lot more human mistakes, though, for him to lose this championship.
Let's take a look at how the teams run themselves as well, because we mentioned 2 of the Maradness M Squad Ginger Liveries cars up inside of the top 3 in the championship. They currently lead by a considerable margin, 73 points over the YS Motorsport squad, with the Thrall Thursday and then second Maradness M Squad and Grant Racing teams rounding out the top 5. Ultimately, consistency is what you need to come by over the course of a season. The Maradness M Squad have been perfect so far in terms of getting both drivers into the top 5 in every single race in the first half of the campaign.
And they spread their net wide. They've got those 2 teams. The second team has kind of fallen off of recent. We haven't seen Wayne Castile and Zachary Deus and the rest of the gang very often, but they're still picking up points in that main team. YS Motorsports, though, they've been consistent. Corey Precker, Sean Mulholland and the gang, they're some of the most consistent drivers. They come back from adversity. They pick up points. It's going to get tight in the team's championship, I think.
And of course, just like with the Drivers' Championship, 2 championships for the teams to talk about here. Just 9 teams, though, through the course of the season. Scuderia Burb Twin Turn Racing. That's not a mouthful to try and get out there during live action. 74 points clear of the Blue Chip Racing crew. Sarthe Sim Racing. And then Soy Boys and Big Fast, the rest of the top 5. But you'll see how close, effectively, 2nd through 5th and 6th are still spread in the championship.
And aren't those the most fun team names to say, Arjuna? Of all the days of the week, Monday night, they've got the best team names. And I know you're going to want to come back here for the next 4 weeks because you just want to say those team names more often.
The problem is saying those team names, Joey. You know me, I can barely say English words sometimes. And
Soy Boys Racing.
Some of those words are definitely made up, you know?
Burb. I mean, all words are made up if you think about it.
That is very true. With the drivers out there for qualifying, let's quickly thank those that make all of this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceSpotTV.com and get a 5% discount also using the Precision5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Maradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit maradness.com. and Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. We look from up above at that imposing triple right-hander where camber plays its part, but of course, we talked already about track limits, drivers underway for qualifying right now, and Joey, getting a lap under your belt is going to be so important, and there's no surprise who's been the fastest of them all on those opening banker laps.
No surprises whatsoever. These are the two guys that have been the fastest all season, and that's dangerous to see them with those big of margins in qualifying. 7/10 for both of them. There's not going to be that much traffic interaction. There's not going to be that much chaos between LMP3 and GT4. You see the split in the lap times there between LMP3 and GT4. 15 seconds. Do the math. That's 8 laps until there's going to be traffic interaction. This race is only scheduled to be, what, about 20 laps long? They're only going to reach GT4 traffic once or twice. Sean Campbell, if he can maintain control in the lead, he's going to be pretty much untouchable unless Brockway and Bergstrom can stick with him on raw pace.
So down into what is the final corner. Brockway pipped by Bergstrom by about almost 3/4 of a second as Campbell rises up towards the line with the cloud cover having come in here at the Circuit of the Americas. There's going to be a 4/10 of a second improvement from Sean Campbell. Oh, the gauntlet has very much been laid down, and similarly Moisan with even more of an improvement as well, I think, on their second lap.
You'll also notice this is closed qualifying. One car on track at a time. Each driver's in their own special track day session of sorts, because this is a multi-class series. Normally in the PRL on the road side, there are open qualifying sessions where everybody's on track at the same time. Unfortunately, we do like chaos. We do like having LMP3 and GT4 on track at the same time, but it's probably good to let them get their own qualifying laps in.
Maybe just a tad. Of course, we've still got 2 minutes left to run here. Joaquin Mello in that Mercedes AMG GT4 is going to work the line, and the drivers get 4 laps again, remember, so they will continue to run until effectively the clock hits 0. Mello now up to second and within half a second of pole.
It's not bad. Joaquin Mello's been very fast this season. Him and his teammate Guarnieri, they've had podium level speed. Guarnieri started on the front row at Indianapolis a couple weeks ago before getting hit with some technical difficulties. So they're both definitely pretty quick, but again, they're hoping for a little bit of trouble for Moisan. They're maybe hoping that with a dive into turn 1, it gets especially crazy here on lap 1 at Coda, they may find a door open in about 2 minutes time, and that could be the way to get their first wins in the PRL.
Did Michael Kulaga run off the track at that penultimate corner where, of course, IndyCar let the drivers run wild a few years ago? We'll find out at the line, or it doesn't matter, and I don't think he did find himself with any improvement anyway, but lap wasn't going to count. Drivers also practicing a pit entry, and that's an important thing given that we know just how important strategy can be in some of these races. Sean Campbell's going to be one of the other drivers, though, that runs to the line. Can he break into the 159s?
You know, I hate complimenting Sean Campbell this much, but he's been the king of the strategy this season. He's been the best at saving fuel. He comes out of the pits with bigger gaps than he came in with as he crosses the line to be the first driver under 2 minutes. I am just trying to imagine things that could go wrong for him to make him lose this race, but he is proving that he is the king of Coda right now. He's putting himself in total control. He's going to be a master of the strategy. This is how difficult it's been to beat him this season, Arjuna. You know, in every league this guy takes part in, he's a tough customer.
As a handful of other drivers head down to pit lane, Jared Farrow will find some improvement, parks it on the track itself. Yeah, Sean Campbell usually jumps out of an LMP3 car here and then hurries on over to the Lionheart Sports Car Series where he then runs around in a GT3 machine. Very, very different. So always impressive to see. Jerry Turner's going to be able to find almost half a second of improvement, jumps in front of Kenny Gorman at the tail end of the GT4 field. And the one thing that you always note, Circuit of the Americas, lap 1, the climb up the hill into the opening corner.
It's a very, very big jump. If I was smarter, I would have the exact elevation change there. It's got to be over 100 feet. Poor old Guarnieri needed about 100 more feet there to make it to the line. He's not going to get his final lap. And now we wait, and in only about a minute's time, we're going to see that file into that big jump into turn 1. It's a tight hairpin. There could be calamity in a little bit.
And they don't, fortunately for us, get a full formation lap with which to build their tires. up to temperature and get them into the condition, because, well, it would be a rather long formation lap. So let's run you down through how they'll line up. And, well, for Sean Campbell at the front of the LMP3 field, maybe there is no surprise, as the Marshmallow Racing number 26 is alongside Alec Bergstrom, that will try and challenge up on that climb into turn 1. Brockway will also be there in one of those purple Muradness M Squad cars, while Jason Drescher is alongside in the 29 machine. Corey Precker and Nicholas Karanjas will share the third row of the grid, while rolling from 7th, Wesley Griffith will be alongside Matt Dinsmore. Bookending your top 10, it's Joey Morissette and Ian Starker, Michael Kulaga, and then Russell Peterson through your top 12, and only Ryan Luna with no time on the board in that Ligier JS P320. Over to your GT4s, where Alexis Moisan will get ready to get them underway in that Porsche 718 Cayman, alongside the Mercedes of Joaquin Mello within half a second of that pole time. Graham Waldman and then Andrew Sharp, 3rd and 4th positions, with Jared Farwell and Augustin Guarnieri sharing row number 3. It's Thomas Dunn alongside Callan Tobin, 1.5 seconds off of pole 7 and 8th, with Nicholas Larson. Nathan Jennings making up the rest of your top 10. John Bedard and Scott Lefferber will share row number 6, with Travis Pruitt and Joshua Reed right behind them. Matthew Cherwick, Jerry Turner, Kenny Gorman, and then Edward Peltz through the top 18. And still 2 more, but with no times on the board, Will Jennings and Matthew Aloka have plenty of work to do. As ever, on a Precision Racing League night, the drivers share of their perspective of what we're about to witness. You can ignore one of the drivers doing their blast down the Mulsanne, but you can see Sean Campbell wheeling back and forth, trying to build some temperature into the tires on the right-hand side. He's alongside Jason Drescher, while up above them in virtual reality, Corey Precker and Matthew Cherwick.
These are some good new views. Jason Drescher, we haven't seen that view before. He's always in a very bright purple car. It's good to see he's in a relevant and fitting room that's very purpley lit there. It's also good to see Sean Campbell from a different perspective last week. He showed us his feet last week, and I don't want to see that again.
That goes somewhere else on the internet. But what we will get to see is at least some of the few traffic interactions as we head up through that triple right-hander. It's a 35-minute race, only about 18 laps, and it's a long lap. We're not expecting many overlaps of those traffic interactions.
It's essentially going to be an LMP3 challenge and a GT4 challenge. Something that's going to be very interesting here, though, is when the LMP3s take the green flag, GT4 takes the green flag as well. No matter where they are on the track, they're not going to be too far back because it's a short pace lap. But when these guys take the green flag at the start-finish line, GT4 can go. They get the green flag as well. That could be an interesting start back there.
What are you expecting then, Joey, as we get ready to rumble, pace car ready to peel off and away?
Sean Campbell gets punted on lap 1 because he turned his camera on for us, and that's just karma.
Well, has Joey just put the commentator's curse down? We're about to find out. First here at the Circuit of the Americas, it's Monday night PRL action. Out of the final corner, Campbell gets the LMP3 GT4 challenge underway at the Circuit of the Americas. LMP3 cars file their way up through the hill, side by side between the teammates behind as Brockway and Bergstrom sort it out amongst themselves. No challenge for the lead, though, as Campbell will lead them on the plunge down. Karanja spins it, Dinsmore runs wide. The GT4 is now underway as well.
And you saw, because they got the green flag early, Joaquin Mello took a peek into the final corner. He tried to take the lead, couldn't quite get there. He's going to be fighting with Graham Wildman for second through turn 1. And Alexis Moisan, even with a little bit of a scary moment, he's still in control in GT4. He survived the first real challenge.
Down through the S's, though, you can see just the lack of downforce that these GT4 machines have. Cresting over the top, though, of the first sector come the GT4 LMP3s, with Campbell already 1 second clear into the crucial corner onto the back straightaway. It is so tight, but if you pick up the throttle early, you can run so much momentum down the long straight side by side further back in the GT4s, but Campbell extends the margin at the front.
He's well and away. He's over a second away. If there was DRS in these LMP3 cars, it wouldn't even matter because he's out of DRS range. The 2 more Adness teammates on the left of your screen, they're pretty close, but I think they're probably in discussions right now saying, it's probably best if we don't race. It's probably best if we don't send any dives right now. The GT4 guys have other ideas. Callan Tobin gets right hooked into the wall, undeliberately, I think, by one of the blue chip racing drivers. But that is a hellacious hit already for the 2 of them.
Sean Campbell's locked up through the arena section. A rare mistake from a driver that's usually so hard to find one of those opportunities on swap around for second as Wildman lunges up the inside of Mello. We may have a race on for both of the leads coming to the end of lap number 1.
And suddenly things just got a little bit more spicy, a little bit more interesting, but out of the final corner, you can already see that even with a big mistake from Campbell, it's still 8.5 tenths of a second between him and Brockway. Brockway's got to hope for an even bigger mistake. He's got to hope for something more. He's got to hope he can figure out something on strategy, because right now, even just one lap in, his life just got much, much more difficult with an 8/10 gap at the end of lap 1.
You can see they do have a bit of a margin to those behind, but we'll see who gets the best of it. Up through the first corner, down through the S's they'll go as the GT4s will come to the end of their opening lap. Again, 35-minute race. We're only expecting maybe 17, 18 laps for the LMP3 machines. Expect plenty less for these GT4s, but plenty of pressure being applied. It's a Porsche, a McLaren, a Mercedes up the hill. Gravity helps you as you try and slam on the brakes just that little bit later. And well, Graham Waldman's got plenty of support in the chat, and he's really putting the pressure onto your race leader.
Yeah, this is interesting. With Moisen being so fast in qualifying, I expected him to pull a little bit bigger of a lead, but Wildman has really been all over the back of him. Took second from Joaquin Mello. Moisen blinks a little bit ahead of him. That might have got Wildman's hopes up just a little bit. But he's keeping touch, he's keeping pressure, and that's all he can really do, because if you remember the last time Wildman was able to put the pressure on like this at Phillip Island, Moisen cracked and made a mistake. We'll see if that happens again here.
A cycle back to the start, and Joey up through turn number 1. Talk us through what we see.
Side by side with the two Moradness drivers, but then further back it's Karanjis getting into the back of Jason Drescher. It was just a little bit of contact, and it just loops the car around. It's sort of a pendulum. At that point, there's nothing you can do to save it. It's a little bit of contact as well. Wesley Griffith got a bite out of that, but I think nobody else was really too heavily damaged. And then through the S's. This is always an exceptionally difficult sequence of corners, especially on lap 1, especially in a marshmallowy GT4 Mercedes. Flips the curb just a little bit wrong, and it's totally destroyed. Now that is an awkward incident right there with one of the blue chip racing Porsches and with Kalen Tobin. That was Nicholas Larson in the Porsche. It looked like he turned hard left there. I don't know why he would do that, but that's what it looked like. I don't think it was deliberate, but that's what happened.
It's just an unfortunate one, and it's lap 1 at times, and 3 different bits of drama have actually seen no one come down pit lane. So 32 started, seemingly 32 still out there with 30 minutes still left to run. You can see the track map on the bottom right corner of your screen, just how spread apart the two classes are. Down through turn 1 and in towards the S's. Now Corey Precker that's behind Matt Dinsmore with Morissette tucked in behind as well. Lack of downforce through these S's with the dirty air going to be a major factor for these LMP3 machines.
That air does get very dirty. It's one of the most difficult sections of corners in the world. It's like Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone, but Maggots and Beckett's doesn't have massive sausage curves on the inside. Maggots and Beckett's isn't quite so tight. It is very, very difficult to get the rhythm going there, and then you have to keep the rhythm going up over the top of the hill, down the hill here, and eventually you get a little bit of a respite with a short straight, a heavy braking zone, and then one of the longest straights in the world here onto the back straight. Great place to get in the draft, great place to potentially make an overtake into the corner at the end of the straight, but Precker's going to be a little bit too far back for that.
And unfortunately, Sean Campbell's one mistake on the opening lap, not repeated so far as we get ready to end lap number 3. He's back to within almost 2 seconds clear of Adam Brockway at the very front, although still almost in drafting range. As I've got to say, for a moment there, Corey Precker very much looked like Morissette was going to be able to slide on through, but the YS Motorsports car has the reckoning for the time being. But in through this very tight stadium section, the long way around goes the 15.
Still trying to make it work. He's got the barest nose to the inside, but eventually Precker does close that off. He's still trying to peek it to the inside. He's taking the Max Verstappen line over the curb. You have to be careful through there not to get a slowdown, not to go over that white line. And I think Morissette realized that he wasn't going to be able to make it work. He's got to slot back in line. And Corey Precker, he's in virtual reality, and he doesn't look stressed whatsoever. He's not looking in his mirror. He's not scared. He's just doing Corey Precker things and moving forward.
I love that we get to see these different perspectives a lot of the time. Virtual reality, of course, something that a lot of people never really get the chance to try it out, and so it's always interesting to see the perspective looking through the corners where the driver's focus tends to go. Back over to the GT4s as they filter in towards the final sector to end their third lap of racing. Moisan still technically within drafting range, but Joey, slowly but surely, 10th by 100th, breaking away in that Porsche.
March forward for the Moisan. It's almost like a matter of time at a lot of these places. The only time when he's really looked to not be the fastest car on track, I mean, was never. At Phillip Island when he lost that race to Wildman, he was still the fastest driver on track, just made a mistake and hit the instant limit. At Le Mans, he was in for a win before he ran out of fuel and had to make a splash and dash with 1 lap to go. He's been basically unbeatable, and that makes every single other driver in this field have to up their game. They've got to put in more hours of practice. They've got to put in more effort than they ever have. So when you've got a guy like Alexis Moisan or a guy like Sean Campbell in LMP3 to chase, you've got to get better if you want to beat him. You can't just stay stagnant. That's something about the PRL that's really elevated in recent seasons. You've got to be good. You've got to practice a lot because you can't just drop in and win these races.
Let's take a look at that weather again for those of you in the inferior Imperial units. 91 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 miles an hour of wind though, and that's going to be an important thing given just how undulating part of this track can be. You may not think that GT4's LMP3 cars will be affected by the wind, but it's more to the changing nature of the wind from varying parts of the track.
Yeah, as if Circuit of the Americas didn't have enough unique corners, we basically make them even more unique. Where in one corner you're getting a headwind, one corner you're breaking into a tailwind. You've got to adjust your driving a little bit, and you can get caught out at times. You can make mistakes. We'll see if Graham Wildman makes a mistake here because he's got Joaquin Mello all over the back of him, putting the pressure back on. Mello qualified ahead of him, was ahead of him for the longest time, and now the natural order of things may be in danger because Wildman is getting chased by that Mercedes. It's all over the back of him. It's a little bit quicker, I think, in this tight and twisty middle sector. He's got to hold off the pressure again. It's just like Phillip Island.
Looking off the back of the 53, that McLaren 570S GT4. Always nice to see the mixture of manufacturers across of the various GT classes that we have. They're having a right knockout, drag-out battle, by the way, back here for 28th overall, 15th in class. Nicholas Larson just got in front of Kenny Corbin, but wearing some battle scars in the 14. Will Jennings just behind that Porsche now, trying to slide on through.
I just learned something last week, Arjuna. You know Milwaukee on the side of that Mercedes for Will Jennings? Mm-hmm. I assumed that was a beer brand for basically
it's
I thought it was a beer brand for the entirety of this season and last season. And I just learned, wait, it's not beer, it's tools. Who knew?
I'm assuming you haven't done too many 80-20 rigs, have you, Joey?
I don't even know what those words mean.
Yeah. I've used my fair share of Milwaukee tools. Mostly to not do things very well, to be fair. Good tools don't make good craftsmen, it turns out.
The only 80-20 I know about is ground beef.
That just went totally over my head, unfortunately. I don't even know what you're referencing there. Back up towards the Maratnus M Squad teammates, second and third, Brockway and Bergstrom. Now 2.5 off the back of Campbell, and as we work our way, now 10 minutes complete in this race, 5 laps under our belts. It's all coming as we get ready, Joey, to head into one of a few traffic interactions over the course of this race.
It's going to come before we know it. This is an interesting battle, though, because it is between those two teammates. And they don't necessarily have a reason not to fight. They don't necessarily have a reason to fight either. So they have to decide, do we want to have an epic battle? Do we want to make Joey and Arjuna and all the viewers happy and make things exciting? Or do we want to switch around if Bergstrom is truly faster? It doesn't really matter because they've got 5 seconds back to Drescher. They've got even more back to Dinsmore. As long as they don't take each other out, they can do whatever they want. And I hope they choose the entertaining option.
It would be nice to have some entertainment. But the thing that I noticed watching that track map is just how spread out the GT4s have already become, which means that it's going to take a couple of laps, you'd think, for the LMP3s to get on through. Yes, they are a good 15 seconds a lap faster, but it's going to take them time to work their way and pick their way one by one on past. Battle for second, of course, in both of our classes still underway. Joaquim Mello has not been able to get close enough just yet to close that margin, but increasingly as traffic's going to be a factor, we'll see exactly how it plays out. The teammates heading off down the back straightaway. Not going to get past the traffic just yet, but now the decisions have to be made.
Getting very scary. Coda's got a lot of corners, and suddenly it has a lot more. It was Edward Peltz, who I think they just got by there. Jean-Sebastien Bédard coming up as well. Brockway to the outside, Bergstrom to the inside, kind of using that car as a pick, but he's going to get slowed up at the apex by it. They're going to be side by side, 3 wide around the outside. And suddenly, after all that shuffling, it all adds up to Adam Brockway getting that spot back, not losing it. Bergstrom's still going to try and fight it around the outside, but the long way around doesn't really work there.
And all the while, as they battled here, great pass. Finally, teammates have it settled. Guarinari gets in front of Andrew Sharp, who drops down to 5th position, heading in through the opening sector. Look how much lateral load they're putting through that car. And Andrew Sharp loses a bit of momentum through the middle part of the S's, snaking to the end of the first sector.
And it is only P5 for Andrew Sharp right now. He was in the fight for wins at the end of the GR86 season last season, but he's still having the best race he's had so far. He hasn't been the best at qualifying as he's made this step up into GT4, but he's the series organizer. He's always ready for Monday nights. He's always excited, and he is having a very, very solid run here in the top 5, 6 seconds ahead of Thomas Dunn in P6, and maybe even more ahead of him. The Scuderia Burb team, they're leading the team's championship pretty easily right now, so even if it might not be a fight for wins or a fight for the Drivers' Championship, there's still team's championship points on the line, and Andrew Sharp is leading the charge for everyone's favorite team name.
Down the back straightaway once again. Let's go back to your leader as he continues to juke through traffic. Just gets in front of Kalen Tobin and Jerry Turner through turn 11, as now they're going to continue their fight with Joshua Reed behind as well. Campbell's actually made up time with all that fighting that we saw and has fortunately disposed of this battle as Brockway and Bergstrom find themselves in the thick of it.
It's good to see Kalen Tobin still out there after that big incident. He's still rolling, but he might not be rolling in a couple of moments here, because here comes the LMP3 traffic. Brockway is a huge lockup, but gets around him anyway. Bergstrom was kind of boxed in there, but did eventually find a hole. That could have been far dicier than it was. Both of them did kind of find good holes to slot in there, but this battle's not going to give up, because Tobin and Turner, LMP3's through, they're back together, and I'm sure we're going to see them side by side for another half of a lap, because that's what they were doing before they were so rudely interrupted by the Moradness LMP3s.
Through that right-hander, the triple right-hander as well. There is so much load that you're putting on these GT4 cars mechanically. Always difficult to work them through the corner. Here comes the first taker onto pit lane, though, as Scott Lefebvre is going to dive his way on through in that Mercedes. We'll see how this cycles out. At 21 minutes to go, relatively early pit stop.
It is an early pit stop, but he was in the middle of the pack, definitely stuck in a little bit of traffic, so he's thinking about alternate things he can do to make up some time. 14's coming in behind as well, one of the blue chip racing cars. That's Nicholas Larson. He had heavy damage from lap 1, so I'm surprised that he was even rolling in the first place and didn't have to bring it down pit lane, but both of them have gone for it a little bit early, but still reasonable enough to get out on track in clean air, and they'll easily be able to make it to the end.
To this, though, Mello Waldman, as they lose track, unfortunately, of Alexis Moiser, not going to keep us entertained for the lead. Maybe Waldman losing some speed in that McLaren midway through the fuel run. Of course, changing a balance of the car is going to come into play. You've got the front-engine Mercedes, the more mid-engined McLaren, going to produce their speed in slightly different ways. Although it does appear as though Graham Waldman has a RaceSpot logo on the front of his car, which RaceSpot chat logo on the front of his car. So I think that must add an extra 5 to the normal 5 horsepower that a RaceSpot logo would give you.
Well, when the RaceSpot chat has been his biggest supporter, he should start selling RaceSpot chat as a commodity. They're giving him so much support. He's getting so much out of it. That's why he won his first race this season. He should start getting some money out of these people. They've been freeloaders for too long.
Whoa. Yeah, we should be getting the money here, Joey.
We should too. We should. Yeah. We'll share it with Graham.
Just 50-50. I don't know. What's his number? We'll give him 47%. We'll take the 53. How about that? With the race leader in the LMP3 class, not yet having caught them, by the way, I wonder if anyone at the front of the GT4 field is going to take a gamble to dive on towards pit lane. Michael Kulaga and Joey Morissette fighting through this very, very tight 17, 18, and 19 complex on the inside, bobbling over the curbs. Kulaga and Morissette powers on through to take away 9th position.
Some brightly colored cars, easily differentiable. especially in a series where there's multiple cars that are painted exactly the same. I love the bright magenta of Joey Morissette. I love the bright blue from Michael Kulaga. It's good stuff, and that battle is... Oh, I thought it was about to be over. I thought Morissette was going to come in there, but no, he was just going very defensive into the final corner. I don't know why he did that, because that's going to let Michael Kulaga go for a switchback out of the final corner, and he's going to have a run to be able to attempt to go for this move into turn 1.
And it's all as we come up in towards some traffic. Here we go, 3 wide. Up into the opening corner. Morissette sweeps that momentum through, but fair play on both sides to give each other some space. The GT4 said, you know what, you guys are fighting, I'll back out of it, let you get this corner for now. And in towards the S's, Morissette's going to be able to put that BMW GT4 machine between him and Kulaga, and now an additional Porsche as well. This is where the downforce really makes the difference as they try and go the long way around.
And this is where, if we were watching Michael Kulaga's mouth right now, he would be saying some unbroadcastable words, because Joey Morissette made it through these two easily, instantly, and Michael Kulaga had to spend the entire middle sector flailing around trying to get by. He is finally through, and Alec Bergstrom's through on Brockway as well. They've finally switched around, and there wasn't even any GT4 traffic to break things up that time.
There is plenty going on up and down and through the field as we take a look at the perspective with another driver in virtual reality. This one, Matthew Sherwick, just now passed by Joshua Reed. You've got Jerry Turner in front as well. This, though, correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, is virtual reality, but with no cable connected to the headset.
I'm looking at it closely. I think you're probably right, but is that a thing that exists?
Well,
wireless VR headsets. Oh, he almost just ate Porsche. But is there a wireless VR headset? Does that exist?
The Oculus Quest does let you do that. Sorry, Meta Quest. We've got to call it correctly. We'll get in trouble. But I don't necessarily know how confident I would be in using it, if I can be completely honest. It's definitely something that I'd be curious to ask him about. We'll ask him his thoughts on. RaceSpot Chat, by the way, does not think that they are monetizable unless you want to give them a royalty. But Graham Wildman brings their hopes and dreams into pit lane.
Listen, I'm all for communalization. You know, we can make a whole system out of this. We'll all profit from Graham. We'll put him on the stock market. It'll be like back when Justin Wilson started his racing career. He told a bunch of investors that he was going to sell himself on the stock market. You invest in him, he gets a career, you make money out of it. We're going to do the same thing.
Well, as Graham Wildman exits pit lane, it's into some clean air, and he'll be hoping for whatever share of distribution we concoct. He'll get a pretty good share of it. Here's, by the way, the danger of pit entry at the Circuit of the Americas. There's Nathan Jennings in his Mercedes and, well, misses the pit entry, unfortunately.
Oh, dear. I mean, Nathan, we talk about the age differences in this series. There's drivers who are in their 50s. There's drivers who are, living their adult lives. Nathan Jennings, he's a freshman in high school, is doing this in his spare time. It's October 23rd right now. He's about 2 months into the school year. He might be focusing on midterms. That might have been a little bit of midterm stress coming into action there.
To be fair, anyone in college who can get a rig or situation dialed in that's half decent in a dorm, kudos to you. I still remember bringing my G27 and trying to set it up in my college dorm. Never really worked out that nicely.
It's high school, so he's probably in his parents' basement. He's probably got a little bit more room.
He's got
a little bit more room.
I misheard you. I heard college, not high school.
Give it a couple years.
It's a Monday. You can clearly
We'll give him the Race Spot scholarship to a university of his choice.
That implies that we've got money, Joey.
$100,000. Whoever wants it.
Why do you think we want the Graham coin that we've decided to come up with here?
I mean, if we can money launder some money out of that, I'll be here for it.
NFTs coming soon. Hashtag something. More and more pit stops in GT4 underway as battle for second continues to go now onto its 11th lap in the LMP3 Ligiers. Guarinari, second one out on track to have pitted. Wildman, of course, the first, just in front, and it's as Moisan and as Mello bring their cars down to the lane.
The interesting blend is going to be with Wildman and Mello. Moisan was about 4 seconds ahead by the time Wildman came in, but Mello and Wildman were covered by a blanket. They were inseparable. Moisan, he's going to have a fairly regular stop, I think. He's off and away. He's going to be comfortable. But Mello still in the box. He finally leaves it. Wildman just crossed the start-finish line. I think this is going to go the way of Graham Wildman, but it's going to be fairly close. Mello's still going to be in with a chance if he can stick with him.
No, you were right. I thought for a second that the run in towards turn one was going to give the opportunity, but no, it was just a little bit too far back. It's going to be after this, though, through the S's, where if Graham Wildman can keep those tires right in the window, hold on through these S's, and keep the LMP3 car behind him for maybe 2 more corners, he'll build up a slight more buffer. This will help him out exactly as he needs. It's up to 9/10 of a second so far. This is perfect.
How courteous Nicholas Carangis is being right now. He could have been more aggressive. He could have sent a more aggressive move there, but I think he valued his own survival and found a much safer place to get through, and he is through now. But that did allow Mello to close up just that little bit. He's within draft range now. I don't think he's within braking range to throw a dive here into the hairpin, but he's going to have the longest straight in the track coming up here. If he can get a good exit and a good run, we could see Joaquin Mello finally get a chance to take second and finally get a chance to go for a dive.
You can see Guarinari's 3 seconds back. Kalen Tobin still yet to pit. The 923's gone longest of them all, but everyone else in the GT4s has made their pit stop as we wait for the LMP3s to do so as well. Down in towards turn 12, just a little bit too far back this time by for that number 19 machine, but the 53 holds on, and it's at that stage now. 12 minutes ago, Joey, track limits. We talked about it a lot at the start. Where are all the drivers now sitting with the incident limit?
That is the question. 12 minutes to go. You better hope you haven't used up all of your incident points just yet, because you're going to be tiptoeing into the rest of the race. In the Precision Racing League on the road side, you get 13 incident points before you have to serve a drive-through. You get 17 incident points before you're disqualified altogether. It is very easy to accumulate those 13 incident points, especially at COTA. I could get 13 incident points in 1 lap with the amount of paved runoff here. I think most of the F1 drivers could too. Gotta be very careful though.
In towards the final corner, that's another LMP3 car going to be very, very courteous. And Joaquin Mello's continuing to get closer and closer. Kalen Tobin, final GT4 machine to make the trip down to the pit lane. Means that now the field will get shaken up. We'll get a good picture for how it will all play out. Up into turn number 1. Slightly different lines being taken. The McLaren later on the turn and a little bit more gradual with its entrance, whereas the Mercedes tried to turn a bit earlier, but then almost hesitated later through the corner. Allows Wildman to be a bit better down through the opening corner in towards the S's, but once again, it closes right back up.
And I have to give Wildman credit. As I say that he's a driver great under pressure, he does crack a little bit and let Joaquin Mello to the outside. Wildman's got to be earlier on the brakes. It's a tighter corner, and Mello does get around. But now Wildman, suddenly he's on offense. He's got to fight back now. He's got to stick with Mello and get a run down the back straight so Mello doesn't run away with this thing. Graham can definitely fight back if he can stay close.
And it's not just these drivers that will, of course, fight as Wildman forces Mello to go defensive. Kalen Tobin out of pit lane, deposited directly in front of Nathan Jennings. Out of turn 11 as Bergstrom and Brockway, the Miranda's M Squad teammates in the LMP3 cars, come down pit lane. Look at the block. It's a move to the inside from Joaquin Mello to defend. Graham Wildman in the McLaren forced the long way around, and they make contact into the braking zone. The Mercedes a little bit weaker on the top end speed, but braver on the brakes. Wildman forced to try the switchback, but Mello parks it on corner exit, holds on to second for now.
Did not work out for Graham there. The switchback is a great move. It's not quite a great move when the driver in front just parks the bus on your nose, and it just did not work out for him. But he is going to continue to put the pressure on. Mello is just sliding around a little bit. He's made a few bobbles that Wildman hasn't quite been able to take advantage of, but I think that battle's going to be very exciting for the last 10 minutes of this race, both of them throwing everything at each other. This is interesting, too, because Bergstrom and Brockway, they're stuck together again. Nothing between them. It's the battle for second and third. There's nobody else even in contention with them. They can keep throwing everything at this and give us something exciting for the final couple minutes.
They do have Matt Dinsmore, who is yet to pit, as well as Sean Campbell directly in front of them, but that will hopefully be of little matter, as that's a bit of a mistake from Bergstrom, who leads his teammate now onto the back straightaway, and Brockway in the tow, closes, and again is going to get forced the long way around into turn number 12.
It's going to be a very fun battle with these two teammates, but they're going to start thinking, how aggressive can we go with this? How hard can we fight, especially with that incident limit looming over us? If you get 4 incident points to add to those 13, that makes your life so much more difficult. But these guys are throwing everything at it. Brockway is through now up over the curb, but he gets a little bit of oversteer, gets a little bit wiggly. If Bergstrom attempted to send it to the inside, he probably could, but Brockway covers off the inside. Bergstrom's going to try and switch it back, but he's going to have to wait for yet another lap to, I think, get another real chance at his teammate. And
I think for a second, Joaquin Mello may have thought he was going to break away from Wildman, but made a mistake towards the end of the S's. They're still going to be within drafting range, coming down in towards turn number 11. There goes Dinsmore, I think, off to the lane. Campbell's going to be a full 7+ seconds clear at the very front of the field. As the battle for second runs to the line, 8 minutes left to go. That means effectively 4 laps to play here in the Lone Star State.
Bergstrom's got a big run here on the front straight. Is he going to be close enough to send a dive into turn 1? He's not. He may have been if it was the final lap and it wasn't his teammate, but he doesn't need a dive because Brockway actually makes the mistake on the exit of turn 1. He had a huge lockup, and Bergstrom just goes on through. That's a 7/10 gap he's already pulled. That was a huge mistake from Brockway.
And that's going to have cooked the tire as well, and so hopefully for Brockway, there isn't going to be too much lasting damage as he tries to bring the tires back into the window, but keep an eye on this margin as they filter out of the opening sector for what is now their 14th lap of racing. Boy, what an interesting one this has been. And with the LMP3s now finishing up their pit cycle, it's effectively just these 2 drivers still in a somewhat close battle as they cycle on through past Matthew Cherwick in that Porsche, who's now been finding himself in plenty of no man's land. Similarly, in the GT4s, Joey, it's splintered up as well, but 3 drivers have very much found one another.
But you see on the side of Caitlin Tobin's car there, I think I saw the Texas flag. I think this may be his home race, so what a great recovery drive this has been after getting turned on lap 1. He's up into the top 10 right now, and that is the Texas flag on the side of that car, so what better race to have the best race of your season for Caitlin Tobin?
That is the Texas flag. Good shout. I was going to just caution maybe not saying if it was a certain flag. I'm not sure. Are you a Spider-Man fan, Joey?
No, but I know it's not Chile.
No, because there's some controversy this week. New Spider-Man game. They put a flag that they thought was Puerto Rico. Do you know what flag it actually was?
Was it Ohio?
No, it was Cuba.
I mean, that's similar to it.
It's actually very similar, yes, but that's the problem. And so I was like, I wanted to make sure. Anyway, back over to action out on track. In this Wesley Griffith, Michael Kulaga fight, they managed to find each other, both out of pit lane on the same lap as well, trying to get their tires back into the windows.
And every position matters here. This may only be a battle for P9, but every point matters. It's a little bit of a shorter field than we normally see, so this is a big opportunity for some guys who have finished out of the top 10 at times, guys who haven't had the results they've really wanted. They can maximize some points and get an extra top 10 here. So I have to imagine that for the rest of the season, we go to tracks like Interlagos and a few others that'll get more interesting. We'll get bigger fields, but these are critical moments to get every point you can get. And Kulaga's just got to slide back in line, wait to get through the final bit of lap traffic here, and he may get a chance on the front straight, but he's not able to do it. He got held up too much there.
Interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I think they're still side-by-side in GT4, by the way. Wildman and Mello have been throwing everything at each other, and they've just switched back again.
They have. They've been actually fighting as the traffic works its way on through other parts of the field. The McLaren cycles back on forward with 5 minutes left to go. Mello's look stronger at various parts of the track. Will take an off track there, though, pushing a little bit wide. Looks up the inside into the final corner, running to the line. Drag race between the two. This is an important indication as well. Any moves on the final lap? Well, it's Wildman by 34 thousandths ahead at the timing beam.
And you know who loves this very much? You see that guy in fourth? Oh my goodness, Augustine Guarnieri. Love to see that as well. Aggressive defense from Wildman. He's going to miss the apex into turn 1. Mello's going to switch it back again. They're going to knock doors again. They are doing full contact sports car racing right now. Wildman's got a nose ahead, but Mello's still there side by side through the S's. Is very, very difficult, and neither of them are going to give up an inch.
They've got to be careful that they don't run afoul of the incident limit, because each of these contacts could be anywhere from 0x to 4x. on their run towards a potential drive-through penalty. Guarnieri has very much caught on to the back of them into the drafting range as we climb up to the top of turn 9 once more and get ready to dive down into that all-important turn number 11. The run onto the back straightaway. The important thing here, though, Joey, 2 teammates to work together potentially.
Yeah, if Mello can bring his teammate Guarnieri into things, that'll make things interesting in the team's championship. Soy Boys Racing with Wildman and the rest of the gang, they're close with SART in the team's championship. Mello and Guarnieri, this could get very, very spicy. I don't think Wildman's going to give up the challenge, though. I don't think Mello's going to be able to run away either. He's been making too many mistakes. Wildman's going to take a peek to the inside to turn 12. Not quite close enough. He is close enough to close down the gap, though. And keep putting a blanket over these 2 guys. They're not going to leave each other for the rest of this race.
You just got to wonder, how does Guarnieri figure into the mix? Sean Campbell is only a couple of corners back from them, so he is going to put a lap on them. As out of the stadium section through the triple right-hander and that imposing tower, they will work once more. 2 laps to go for them then. 2 laps to go for most of the drivers as well, in what has been a rather fascinating fight so far. A 35-minute race doesn't sound like a lot, but at a track like this, as Mello runs wide once more, he's definitely maybe conserved some incident points in the early stages of the race. The drama of that potential penalty, Joey, sometimes can be just as stressful as driving around the track.
And it is kind of a strategy you can take advantage of. If you were courteous to the incident limit early on, if you do have, say, 10 incident points to play with 2 laps to go, you can deliberately run wide through some corners. You can build up a little bit of speed because you know you're not going to get disqualified. Mello, though, again out of turn 1, gets a little bit of oversteer. He's got a slow run down the hill, and that allows Graham Wildman and that McLaren to get that much closer and give that much more pressure through the S's, where if you make 1 mistake, you're totally off the rhythm. It takes the entire middle sector to recover again. It's so hard to stay in the rhythm here, especially under pressure. And neither of these guys have really been able to do that. That's why it's been so entertaining.
And you saw it in the inset picture, just how much closer Sean Campbell is. Sean Campbell's visible in shot out of turn 9 once more. This time for the penultimate time as well. There's a great shot. Illustrates the undulation, the elevation that this track presents, carved into the surroundings of Austin, Texas. It has very much become a classic, although bumpy its track might very well be. Out of turn 11, Campbell dispatches of all 3 in these battle for second, but Wildman closes once more in the drag race into turn 12.
Now, if Graham really wanted to be a fan favorite, what he could do is he could pull to the left here, full throttle it into turn 12, and take Sean Campbell with him. I don't think he's going to do that, though. He wants to live to fight another day. He wants to keep this going until the final lap, and he's going to do exactly that because he's had a great turn 12 again. He's still all over the back of Mello. He's still been better through these tightest and twistiest of sectors. He needs to find a way to force him into 1 more mistake onto one of these straights, though, because that's going to be his door to the inside. It's great to run close together like this. It's great to be able to follow. He's got to figure out how to make the pass, though.
You may have noticed we haven't talked about Adam Brockway and Alec Bergstrom. Well, after that lockup from Brockway, slips back in the line and now a full 6 seconds away from his teammate. But once again, those 2 teammates are going to continue to build up their advantage towards the very front of the field. Here's Sean Campbell, though. We haven't really gotten the chance to look over his shoulder and ride with this perspective. This is the thing with Campbell, though. He's watching the YouTube chat as we cross on to take the white flag.
I want to know where his keyboard is, because he's normally typing things. He hasn't typed a single thing at COTA today. He's clearly been a busy boy. He hasn't even got to type in the RaceSpot chat.
We'll see what he has to say eventually, as the GT4's battle for second will also take the white flag, this time by diving down through the opening corner, where we have seen Wildman be slightly better over the course of this lap. We'll see how it goes for him, as Chaos slightly further behind as Matt Dinsmore loses out a top 5 finish after looping it in the final sector of the lap.
Yeah, he was pretty close together with Corey Precker. I don't know if they made contact or what, but that has that's ended that battle while it didn't even really start in the first place. Precker's going to be comfortable for the rest of the race. Wildman, though, did get held up a little bit more there by Bergstrom. He's going to slot back in here, but here's what happened to Dinsmore. It was actually contact with Nathan Jennings and GT4. Precker had nothing to do with it. Just a little bit of a bad interaction with GT4 traffic. This is the first real incident we've seen today. It's been remarkably clean until then.
It can happen, unfortunately. This is a track which can be difficult to work through traffic given the high speed and slow speed corners that you have to navigate your way through. Final lap, as we keep talking about, and here comes what is going to be a pretty stern defense, you'd have to say. Guarineri's not close enough. It's all now down to Wildman versus Mello. One-on-one into turn 12. The McLaren peaks the long way around, deep under the brakes. Is it trying to set up a switchback? Not going to happen. Once again, great defense by that Mercedes.
But here comes Adam Brockway to the inside of Mello. Is that going to open the door for Wildman? It might just do. He's able to switch it back to the outside. He's got to be even later on the brakes, though, into the final part of this stadium section. He's got to hope Mello leaves him enough room. He doesn't have the grip to do it, though. He's got to slot back in line.
And they're not going to be done fighting. You have no doubt about that. But coming out of the final corner, continuing the streak, it's Sean Campbell on top, and he wants to show us that Nicolas Cage is watching over the shoulder. Take a bow, Sean Campbell. 6 for 6 so far. But here comes the run for second. Alexis Moisan will be the winner, of course, in the GT4 class. But Joaquin Mello, Graham Waldman, and Guarineri going to be split by just under a second, Joey, in a drag race to the line.
That was the most exciting battle of this race. They gave it everything. 35 straight minutes of battling. Wildman comes up just short, but it's still a podium all the same. He's going to be happy with that. And what a dominant show for Alexis Moisan. I don't think we said his name a single time in this race, Arjuna. I don't think we saw him once after lap 1. That's just Alexis Moisan things, though. I
hope we get the chance to chat with Alexis to give them their shine as the 21 will do a couple of donuts to celebrate another dominant display. Not 100% like Sean Campbell, but same sort of championship swagger so far this season. As to the line, plenty of other drivers will finish their races up. So many stories that I'm sure we didn't get to talk about, but that shot up in towards turn number 1. What an interesting first corner that is for the drivers, Joey, and what a terrifying experience that must be as well, knowing just how many different lines and the opportunities for chaos that we may see.
It's 133 feet. I did look it up finally. I finally get to break out that number. I don't know what's 133 feet tall. Are you 133 feet tall, Arjuna?
I certainly hope not. I'm only 6'5".
Only, he says. I really set him up for a humble brag there. I think like the Statue of Liberty might be 133 feet tall. I think it's around that. It's pretty big. It's a very large hill. It's very ominous.
Final cars are coming their way towards the line. We'll get you a look at the race results, and then we'll dispatch Joey to go off and chat with a handful of the drivers. Sean Campbell doesn't have to pull his double duty here today, as we were mentioning earlier, so only the LMP3 car is very much going to be the focus for him. But here we go, drivers all across the line. Let's run you down through the race results. 12 and a bit seconds the margin between Campbell and the rest, but ultimately it's just the fact that the streak continues that says it all. 6 for 6 and showing no signs of stopping. The Maradness M Squad team will be quite excited though to have netted second and third once more, continue to put the pressure on in the Drivers' Championship, continue to hold up the very top of the team championship as well. Jason Drescher was some way back and just in front of Corey Precker, who leapfrogged Matt Dinsmore in the closing stages with some traffic chaos. Ian Stalker, Joey Morissette, and Wesley Griffith and Michael Kulaga make up the rest of your top 10, with 11th going the way of Ryan Luna and Nicholas Karanjas just behind, all on the leading lap. The only driver 1 lap down, Russell Peterson, with all drivers seeing the checkered flag in the LMP3 standings. In your GT4s, well, look at those manufacturers. Mercedes, McLaren, but not able to pit the might of Porsche. Alexis Moisan once again on top in front of Joaquin Mello, Graham Waldman, and Augustin Guarineri, who very much put on a fight for the ages. The Sarthe Sim Racing and Soy Boy Racing teams will very much be looking forward to more fights to the end of the season. Andrew Sharp 5th, Thomas Dunn 6th, with Jared Farrell, Scott Lefebvre, Kalen Tobin, and Travis Pruitt through the rest of your top 10. Nicholas Larson, Nathan Jennings, Jerry Turner, Joshua Reed, Matthew Cherwick, Kenny Gorman, Edward Pelton. Will Jennings all finish, unlike, unfortunately, Matthew Aloka and John Sebastian Berdard. Those were the 20 GT4 machines that took to the green flag. Well, as expected, we can head down to Victory Lane, where Joey Tebbin's getting ready to chat with the one, the only, Sean Campbell.
Indeed I am. Sean Campbell, 6 wins, 6 weeks. Does it ever get old?
No.
Good answer. Expected answer. But I do have some good statistics for you. I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago you were 8th all-time in the PRL. Well, now you're tied for 7th all-time with Mr. Greg Seitz. Do you have it in your sights, fittingly, to beat him and get 7th on your own next week?
Hopefully.
Good. I'm gonna commit to this being one-word answers for the rest of the interview. We're going next week to a place that's not too dissimilar from COTA. It's going to be another track limits fest, I think. Do you think you're going to go 7 for 7? And also, will you be under the 13x incident limit?
Hopefully.
Good stuff. What was your incident limit or your incident count today?
5.
All right, now I got to do a challenge here. If you're going to answer with one word, what's your first and last name?
Scamble.
Okay. I've been beaten there. Congratulations, Sean. Yet another win. We got to get creative here. Congrats again, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
There you go. One-word answers from Sean Campbell. You love to see it. We may get a few more from Graham Wildman because you put on the show today, Graham. You and Joaquin side by side for seemingly 35 minutes of that race. How sweaty are you right now?
Definitely a little moist. Not as bad as Phillip Island, but it's close.
So how did this place compare to Phillip Island? Because you were very fast at Phillip Island. There was a lot of pressure there. You had a lot of pressure today as well. How did this differ from the pressure you felt from Moisan?
The first sector on this track was just absolutely terrible in my car. I was losing 0.3 of a lap easily to Jacqueline there. Overall, the rest of the lap was pretty strong. I think Phillip Island just flowed better with my car. It's just these high-speed corners, it doesn't like it.
So you did get your 1 win just a couple of weeks ago. Do you think you can make it 2 wins before the end of the season? Is there anywhere else that stands out for you?
I don't know. Coming up, we got a lot of first-time tracks for me, so it's definitely going to be a struggle for me to get up to speed. It's going to be more predicated on if Alexis makes a mistake more than how fast I am, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, Graham, congrats on yet another podium. I know the chat's very excited about that. We're talking to them about investing in you and making some money about that, but we'll discuss that more with you next week.
All right, thanks, fellas.
Graham Wildman coming home on the podium, but even more importantly, Arjuna coming home with a valuable business opportunity. We're going to be selling that guy before he knows it.
Graham Coyne has already made a splash, I'm sure, around the world. You briefly touched on it with Sean Campbell there in the one-word answers that I'm sure will surprise many, many drivers. Fuji Speedway up on decks next, though, and it all comes in a rather interesting championship swing because after Fuji, Donington, Zandvoort, once again tight, twisty confines, and then into Lagos, which, let's be fair, Joey, it's very, very similar in nature to Fuji.
It is. Fuji's going to be very, very technical, though. The final sector is maybe one of the most hated sectors in racing by drivers. It's one of the most feared sectors because it's so difficult to get right. And if you get held up in traffic, if you're an LMP3 car behind a GT4 car into the final sector at Fuji, you thought the S's at COTA were bad for that, you're going to be struggling for the entirety of that final sector.
And so that is, of course, all still to come. There's a look at the chicane, which I'm not actually sure if we're using.
Good question.
Good question, because it really does change how the race will go, especially with the way the traffic plays itself out. There's the reminder, though, of what a fascinating schedule it's been as well, and a relentless schedule. Joey, no breaks since we got underway on September 18th, and we won't stop until we finish on November 20th, just before, of course, we break for Thanksgiving.
It's relentless stuff, and Graham Wildman, he's actually in danger because we saw one of his family members in the chat saying that if Graham doesn't win before the end of the season, he's not getting any turkey, so he better get winning before the end of the season.
Well, that is some family expectations, but as the drivers make their way out of the Circuit of the Americas and get ready to go over to Fuji, we can make our way across the pond and to maybe one of the most famous tracks in all of endurance racing. We've landed here at the Circuit de la Sarthe to go racing for the second half of the Precision Racing League GTP and LMP2 series. It's all going to be about the prototypes blasting down the Mulsanne and, well, maybe not any traffic interactions over the course of what will surely be a fun and fascinating race. Joey, this is a series, of course, with the newest prototypes available on iRacing, and a prototype that many drivers have plenty of experience with, and a nice healthy mix between the two.
It's been the hottest new toy for the last couple of seasons, the BMW, and we've got even hotter toys in the recent past, with Cadillac coming in, with the Acura coming in. We'll see a couple of them. We may even see a couple of Porsches. We may see all 4 cars represented. I don't know if we'll see the BMW though, actually. So it's a diverse mix, but it's been a diverse mix of tracks so far. They kind of just, I think they told an AI, pick the 10 tracks that are most suited to top-level prototype racing, and it spat this out. And I guess it only makes sense in the first year of this series, the first season of this series, with all the top-level prototypes. Might as well put them at all the top-level prototype tracks.
After this, Sebring, Monza, Road America, and the Red Bull Ring. These are some of the best tracks, but also tracks with, let's be real, plenty of passing opportunities, as we have in store today. It often comes down to strategy, Joey, and how drivers work their way through what are quite intriguing races, which of course, once again, the solo qualifying that precedes them.
And mistakes have been punished very heavily this season. So when you see tracks like Sebring, where mistakes are punished very heavily, you've got to respect the bumps everywhere there. Road America, you can have a massive crash there. The Red Bull Ring does have some runoff, but there's also plenty of possibilities for big crashes. You've got to keep the consistency right. You've got to keep the car underneath you. That's been a struggle for quite a few drivers this season who haven't quite been able to keep it on the track. They're going to have to get better here in the second half of the season if they want to fight for this championship.
And so when we have just come over from 2 championships in the LMP3s and GT4s, where it's been 2 drivers at the very top of the entire class, basically season long, when we look at the GTP standings, it's been a lot more mixed up towards the front. Yes, we've only had 3 drivers winning races so far, but Michael Diaz, the 3 wins that he has, only sits back in 7th. With the penalty points and the way that things have racked up around him. It's Colin Hopkins that leads them after DNFing last time out, only 3 points clear of Dave Menino.
Yet again, it's become kind of a championship of consistency. Michael Diaz has won 3 out of 5 races, and he had a pretty solid, reasonably solid day in round 1. He got disqualified, though, for reaching the incident limit in round 4, and you cannot drop a disqualification in the Precision Racing League, so he's got a huge amount he needs to come back. Pat Pell-Shaw had a bad race as well, where he got some penalty points. You can't drop a race where you get penalty points either, so he's in danger as well. Meanwhile, the 2 most consistent guys of the season, Colin Hopkins and Dave Menino, they're in the championships lead solely on consistency, and also both of those guys crashed at Watkins Glen last week. That's how difficult things have been.
It is, of course, a fast championship, with not just talking in terms of the cars, but in terms of the tracks that we've gone racing at as well. And so when we look at the second of the prototype standings, it's the LMP2s, where we have seen just 2 different winners. Jack Hedgecox with 3 and 2 wins for Nicholas Shepard, but a bit of a buffer at the top, given 5 top 5 so far for Hedgecox in that Gowan Racing Amethyst entry. Now, drop rounds not necessarily playing up as a factor for the championship leader here so far, but fortunately for him, Joey, as we head towards that final round of the season, every round except the final round can be dropped, and so for Hedgecox, just continuing to rack up the consistent top 5 finishes, exactly what he needs to do.
That is correct, and he had exactly the kind of race he needed to have at Watkins Glen last week. He won the opening 2 rounds of the season, then kind of had a couple of off races, had Nicholas Shepard beating him pretty handily. But at Watkins Glen last week, Nicholas Gowan put it on pole, Hedgecox passed him on pace, and ran away with things. He really cemented himself back at the top of the championship, and he's going to be hoping that he can do the same here, and maybe even for the rest of the season. It could be the dominant championship that it looked like it might have been after those first 2 rounds.
And I think with the way that there's going to be less traffic to play today, I think it's all going to be about speed and the way that you fare out across of the strategy cycles. Sarthe Esports Black lead the GTP standings, though, as we look at the team championship, 52 points clear of the Precision Racing Esports Elite crew, who are only 29 points clear of the Precision Racing Academy team. Now, again, remember, you can have as many as 3 drivers entered for a team, but only the top 2 of them will score points. That's why consistency is always so important. Halfway through the season, though, Joey, it's been Precision Racing Esports Black who consistently have been able to score more points than Sarthe Esports Black. It's just one bad round has left them slightly further behind and with some work to do.
And the team that is really out of place is Fiercely Forward down there in 6th and 7th. Daniel Harris from Fiercely Forward has been on pole, I think, in every single round this season. No, in 4 out of 5 rounds this season. He's been very fast, but he's only got 1 win to show for it because every other race has been a crash or a DNF. Colin Hopkins, the championship leader, crashed in the last race. All the fiercely forward drivers have been very, very fast. The consistency just hasn't been there, so they're not getting the points they need. And there's 120 points they need to make up in the second half of the season.
It's not that much in terms of second half of the season and how much time you've maybe got to close that advantage, but some of the races that we've got, not sure how much you're really going to be able to crack your way on forward. Now, curious thing about qualifying at the Circuit de la Sarthe, you start just before the final sector, in fact, well, final mini sector of the lap. It means that realistically, with lap times hovering just under 3 minutes and 40 seconds for both of the classes, there's about a 20-second gulf between where we would actually expect to see those cars. You're only really going to get one proper attempt. You will get one banker attempt. Before that, it's all then about that second flyer and how you go from there. As it stands right now, it's Rafael Russo on top in the GTPs with a 3:22.4 after a rather long lap, only half a tenth back to Dave Menino. Jeremy Carter's currently leads in the LMP2s.
Things are not looking like they normally do. Jeremy Carter on pole. That's a guy, I believe, making his PRL debut this season. Has been quick, has been up in the top 5, but hasn't had pole pace necessarily. But he got a lap in early. He's up there early, and that could be a great bout of confidence for him. If Jack Hedgecox, Nicholas Shepard, Nicholas Goen all run into a little bit of trouble in qualifying, he can hang back on that. But also, as I look at my timing screen here, I don't actually see Nicholas Shepard in the session, so this may have to be his drop week guaranteed.
You're right. Neither do I, as Chris Rabel bails out of the final corner and is going to try and rack up another attempt at the line. Yeah, it might be a couple of drivers that find themselves having to take a drop round. Mark Kalin, he was featured a couple of times on RaceSpotTV in the last handful of weeks, jumps into the final sector, and this is one of the most fun, maybe the most fun section of the track. Riding over the shoulder of Kalin through the Porsche curves, 4th gear in this LMP2 for Kalin, up into 5th, and just look at the commitment, trying to search for as much speed and as much momentum through the corners as possible, but be careful here. Don't run out too wide, so easy to pick up a slowdown penalty, and the rear end trying to step around on the 62 machine.
Call him Mark Oversteer Kalin, because he loves that oversteer, whether it's on an oval or whether it's on a road course. You're going to see that guy sliding around a little bit, but he's going to make it through the final sector. He's going to slide it into the final chicane, though. He is going to cross the line, but he's putting up the excitement, and it's not going to be a very quick lap. He's going to cross the line with not enough time to finish one more lap. It's going to be P5 for Mark Kalin. He'll go no further.
And there you can see Perez D'Amico is going to be setting up, I think, a final attempt that is also not going to have enough time to finish. So there's going to be no attempts for plenty, it would seem, with these LMP2 drivers. There's only 4 GTPs with no time on the board out of the field that we have. 14 already stationed on the left-hand side of the screen. Only 9 of the LMP2 drivers have been able to get times in, and almost double digits seemingly having missed out. There's Chase Kaufman to the line. He will find himself up into 5th. That's great for him. Brett Thurman to 4th in the GTPs, but Pat Pelchat to provisional pole.
And here come the heavy hitters. Pelchat across the line, Hopkins across the line, O'Connor across the line. Jack Hedgecox, though, critically crosses the line and doesn't get a lap time in. The championship leader is going to have to start from the back of the field in LMP2. That spices things up quite a bit.
So many things going on, and because of the way that these laps are coming to an end, they're somewhat being overlapped with one another. Dave Menino going to start no higher than 5th, but you mentioned Daniel Harris in the fiercely forward machine. Has started on the front row a couple of times before. Jerome Bertiome has just jumped up into 2nd momentarily, pipped by the 88. Dropped down to 3rd in the LMP2s, but here comes Harris to the line.
Can he make it 5 out of 6 pole positions? It's looking good, and yes, it is. 1 second faster than Pat Pelchat, and it does count. No off tracks. Daniel Harris back on pole yet again. That's been a place where he's been very comfortable this season. He didn't start on pole for the first time at Watkins Glen last week and took out his teammate on lap 1. Now he's back up front in clean air. Can he stay there, though?
We watch his teammate Aiden Young running down the Mulsanne. There is definitely going to be no time to finish this lap, and so going to start no higher than 13th position. That's a frustrating place to be. Here's Darian Roy in the 2:11, brings the Dallara P217 to the line. 3:33.8 was the previous best. Definitely not going to see any improvement there, but at least within margin of error of consistency in these qualifying laps. That's always a promising sign as drivers slide into the qualifying order behind. Joe, with 60 seconds left to go, that's basically qualifying done and dusted.
And there are a lot of drivers who didn't actually get a qualifying lap in GTP. Bradley Holly, his teammate Nicholas Schwartz, Nick Silver as well. They're all going to be starting from the back of the field there. And LMP2, there's a whole host of drivers, most notably Jack Hedgecox, the championship leader. He's never started lower than 3rd this season, I don't think, and suddenly he's got to start about 16th without getting a single qualifying lap in.
And Blake Ziti brings things to a close as well. I tell you what, track limits, we were talking about them at the Circuit of the Americas. It's at the Circuit de la Sarthe where maybe today they're going to be even more of a talking point, Joey.
They're going to be... It's going to be easy to build up those incident points, but there's not going to be that much traffic interaction, I don't think. There's not going to be that much contact, so you won't have to worry about that danger so much. 19 seconds, or a 3-minute 19 for GTP, 3-minute 33 for LMP2. That's a 14-second difference. I think while you run through the grid here, Arjuna, I'm going to have to do some math here to see if they even will meet in the course of this 45-minute race.
So we'll let Joey get his PhD in traffic analysis while we run you down through the starting grid for the second part of the Monday night doubleheader. Here's a look through the GTP field where with a 3:19 flat, Daniel Harris will bring them to the pole for what is now the 5th time this season. Has only finished 3 races though in the first half. Can he manage to endure the challenges that the Circuit de la Sarthe will throw at him? Pat Pelchat in the Precision Racing Esports 919 will be alongside, while Michael Diaz and Colin Hopkins will be behind them. So it seems to be a mostly Cadillac affair up towards the front. Boris Ovando alongside Dave Menino as some of the championship contenders make their presence known on the outside of that front 3 rows. Zach Herbert, Ryan O'Connor, 7th and 8th positions with Felipe Ciarmello and Rafael Russo in the L1 Esports cars through the edge of the top 10. Mac Miller and that Brett Thurman, 11th and 12th positions with Aiden Young, Anthony Dring, Jeff Evans, and then Bradley Holly, the first of many drivers with no times on the board. Nicholas Schwartz, Nick Silver, they'll line up 17th and 18th positions and round out what is a large GTP contingent, all in Cadillacs. There's a couple of ARXs for Acura in the mixes as well. Jeremy Carter's, though, in the LMP2, the Dallara Spec LMP2 class will bring us to the green in that 124. It's his first pole position of the season. He'll be alongside the 88 for Nicholas Gowan, with Jerome Bertiome and Joshua Chinsky behind. Caleb Lehman and Darian Roy will share row number 3 in these LMP2 machines, with Chase Kaufman and Mark Kalin behind them. Blake Ziti, Doug Evans, 9th and 10th, with Ryan Chandler and Alexander Good, 11th and 12th positions. Carl Strycar is the final car with a lap time on the board. He'll line up in 13th spot in front of Eric Harmon, Doug Sorrentino, Chris Rabel, Damian Benke, and then Jack Hedgecox, of course, the big shock down there in 18th, alongside Josh Gowan, Brian Hoskins, and Giovanni Perez D'Amico. Plenty of drivers have so much work to do, and Joey, I believe it all comes as we'll run our way in through the sunset.
Nice little short pace lap here. I did do the math over the course of you reading through that big old grid. By my calculations, it'll take 14.2 laps to reach traffic. There's only 14 laps scheduled to run in this race with how long the laps are, so it may come down to basically the final couple of corners where the leader in GTP may run into some LMP2 stragglers. It's going to be close, though.
And this, of course, 35 minutes in the previous race, 45 minutes in this race. We expect a pit stop, and it's a fuel-thirsty track just by nature of how much time you spend full throttle around it. Joey, what are we expecting? What are we feeling here, given the conditions? I thought it was seemingly somewhat in the late afternoon, but in fact, the late full running of the race that we have here means that it's 11 o'clock in the morning and about as cold as you can get.
It's a very cool day here in France. If I was smarter, I would have looked up what cool was in French. I would have looked up all the temperature words, but I still haven't done that like every week. Either way, it's going to make some drivers very, very happy as the tires heat up. It's going to make them unhappy, though, on lap 1 because things are going to be a little bit dicey through the first couple of corners, especially on cold tires.
Here comes the tricolor, always a sight to behold, whether you're in the real or virtual worlds. But we're getting ready. and you can tell the drivers know what to expect. Joey, they're single file, getting ready to go into the final couple of corners.
It's courteous stuff. All the drivers agreed on this before the race. They're going to do a single file start through the chicanes here to not have any trouble, to not have any side-by-side. That's the PRL. The drivers trust each other to do this.
Pace car off and away, and Daniel Harris once again leads us towards the green flag at the Circuit de la Sarthe, in towards the opening corner that we will go. There's not really going to be too much fighting through the field. Single file for both of the class leaders, and so up in towards that opening chicane. Just don't get a slowdown penalty, because it is so painful on this opening lap. Safely through go the GTP machines, and now the LMP2 cars work into turn 1 as well.
What happened? How did Jeremy Carter get a 2-second lead? He's miles away from the rest of his competitors. I don't know if there was a miscommunication or what, but Jeremy Carter is absolute miles away from the LMP2 field, and everybody else behind is trying to pick up the pieces right now, trying to get in line, probably a little bit confused at it's seemingly a messier start than expected in LMP2.
And it's allowed that draft to be broken up towards the front. Mac Miller's dropping down slightly on this main straight for the first time on the Mulsanne. I suspect slowdowns, and for a handful. Just look how slow some of those cars at the back will run. In towards the first of the chicane, Daniel Harris leads. Pelchat and Diaz still within drafting range, as now the LMP2's also filtering to the Mulsanne as well.
That was a huge moment, though, out of the first chicane for Michael Diaz at the top of the screen. He was lucky to save that. He's not lucky, though, because Colin Hopkins was right behind him. He's been able to take advantage of the draft. He's been able to take advantage of the slowdown that I think Michael Diaz might be getting for cutting that corner. He's through. Ovondo's through. Menino's through. Diaz is falling out of the top 7 with a little slowdown after a small bobble.
It's always the worst as well on the opening lap. They are always the most impactful. How can you recover? Well, we'll find out as the green flag continues to rumble, and drivers, well, over the crest of the Mulsanne. Blake Ziti and Mark Kalin almost finding themselves in the wall for a moment. Their second chicane for these Dallara P217s. Almost try and flick up the cone on the entry into the corner, but no drivers finding themselves getting the marshals back out onto track immediately. Slowest point on the track, though, upcoming for the GTPs as they run themselves out of Mulsanne corner.
These are critical moments for Daniel Harris. Pelchat was actually able to close down that gap a little bit. He's in within 0.4, and Daniel Harris has been a driver, for better or for worse, who has felt pressure this season negatively. He's gotten taken out through no fault of his own multiple times, but he has made mistakes of his own multiple times, and Pat Pelchat is hoping that as he puts the pressure on, that happens again, and he can come through. But for now, on lap 1, Harris has been absolutely perfect.
And look at the championship leader, Colin Hopkins, in that number 19 machine, very much feeling the pressure in the fiercely forward black car from Ovando, from Menino, from Herbert. They're now heading towards the Porsche curves, though, as the LMP2s, still led by Jeremy Carter, Nicholas Goin, and Jerome Bertiome, trying to hunt them down. The commitment required, though, now at its maximum for all the drivers. Harris, well, it was a fast lap in qualifying. He builds the margin once more.
And Pat Pelchat behind is just pushing with everything he has, but it's Le Mans. It's an open setup series. There's going to be some cars here that are very quick in a straight line and a little bit weaker in the corners, and I think Pat Pelchat is really feeling that. He was so fast in the straights, but the second we got into this final sector where you need downforce, he has just dropped like a rock. So that's the trade-off you do with that setup. Zach Hebert threw into P5 as well, hopping the curbs, but getting through on Dave Menino. That was a great move.
Zach Hebert, correct myself on that pronunciation, moving forward up into the top 5 now, and a crucial move as well, given that Ovando was looking like he might flirt with breaking away to make it a 4-car queue at the front. We'll see how they all fare out for LMP2s as we get ready to close lap number 1 of an expected 14. It's Blake Ziti that now loses time with a slowdown through the final sector. Heartbreaking for him after a good opening lap. Had seen him climb up almost 4 positions so far. But Carter only now 1.9 seconds clear of second place behind.
And I'm still curious as to what happened at the start. I don't know if we have a replay of that, but Carter, when the green flag flew, when they crossed the line, he had a 1.5 second lead over the rest of the field. I don't know if he jumped it or if everybody else was caught napping or what, but that's just confusing. What's not confusing, though, is Jack Hedgecock's, understandably, from at the back of the grid in LMP2, didn't get a lap in qualifying. He's already up about 8 spots.
Oh, and I think behind him, as Ryan Chandler had a moment. Yes, he has indeed. Has spun it around. And maybe Alexander Good has been brought with him as well. Michael Diaz, Aiden Young, they've swapped around into the first of the chicanes down on the Mulsanne. And now look at this 4-car scramble down into the second chicane. Ducking and diving, trying to break the toe. It's Ryan O'Connor leading them into that second chicane.
You're going to start making me hungry talking about a 4-car scramble in France. I'm thinking about omelets right now. This is big stuff. Felipe Ciramello, or actually his teammate Rafael Russo, peek into the inside of O'Connor. Not going to happen there. They're going to slot back in line as you kind of have to do through that second chicane. But look at the cloud of LMP2s that's about to file through here. They're 3 wide down the straight after the first chicane.
It's Bertium, it's Lehman, it's Roy. Who gets the best run out of that corner in towards that second chicane? Well, the 217 of Bertium is going to be on the outside. Caleb Lehman going to squeak on through. Darian Roy backs out of it for the time being. All in the quest to not lose too much track of time. Where do you even look on this track though right now? Because so many different battle packs are forming, and this is what we kind of expected, Joey. But take a look at the replay. What happened to Ryan Chandler?
That is Jack Hedgecock's right ahead of him, but Chandler's a little bit too late in the brakes and ends up in the gravel and ends up spinning it around. It's pretty simple stuff. Just kind of felt the pressure there behind him. I think that was Joshua Chinsky that spun as well. Or actually, it was Alexander Good, rather, in the purple and white car. It's a heavy braking zone, and in these LMP2s, those brakes love to lock, especially if the brake bias is a little bit off to your liking. It is so easy to lock those rear brakes and just instantly spin the car around.
Michael Diaz and Rafael Russo just went side by side through the slowest corner on the track and came out of it on the other side with no such drama. Mark Kalin's got a slowdown penalty. He's lost some ground on this lap. So much going on as the LMP2s side by side. Sorrentino and Kaufman in towards Indianapolis.
And I mentioned Jack Hedgecock's driving forward after starting at the back. Doug Sorrentino didn't get a qualifying lap in either, and he's already up to P6 as he gets around Kaufman. Doug Sorrentino made his debut in this series last week, and suddenly he's driving to a top 5 almost from the back of the field.
I really do not know where to look right now. There is so much being flashing up in red on the timing screens around us. So many drivers keeping close together. End of lap 2 though, Daniel Harris has been able to extend the margin to Pat Pelchat to 2 seconds, and that's important. No visual pressure maybe from behind. Can Daniel Harris finally convert this to a race victory? Some of his teammates behind still very much in the thick of the fighting.
Remember, Fiercely Forward is still fighting for this team's championship. They've still got to look fiercely forward. They may have Harris and Hopkins up on the podium, but Aiden Young needs to think about points as well, and the rest of their teammates do as well. Young is all over the back of O'Connor through Tetra Rouge onto the Mulsanne straight. He's got a better exit. He's got a better entry. He's got a better everything. He's just got to hope he has better straight line speed in the slipstream here.
And you mentioned open setups. What do these drivers have in terms of downforce levels? Do they want to be slippery in a straight line, fast, a rocket ship right now? Or do they want grip in the corners? Through the likes of Tetra Rouge, through the likes of the Porsche curves. It seems as though Aiden Young just has enough speed. He'll be aided by a lack of defense, be honest, put forward by Ryan O'Connor. Gets on through for now, but surely they'll chop and change. They'll continue their little tussle. Caleb Lehman and Jerome Bertium. Not sure when Jeremy Carter was able to build up a 5-second advantage, but has run away at the front in his Dallara P217.
I'm still so confused. I think he's a magician. I think he's un magicien here in France. I think he's pulled the gap out of thin air, and we won't be able to explain it. There's nothing in science that can tell us how he did that.
I don't even know if it's necessarily all just down to him, or maybe it's just the fighting behind as well, because this lap, we'll get a better sense in terms of lap times at the line, I guess. But yeah, not looking like there's anything really poking out in terms of sector or lap data so far. Still 8th, our focus in the GTPs as well, at the back of the train. You can see Ryan O'Connor trying to now look to try and get past the L1 at number 21 of Rafael Russo, but out of Mulsanne, down that long blast, and now into another long blast. This is the one thing about this track, Joey, you get plenty of time to think.
We're going to start saying Le Mans is an oval now. I think that's the final conclusion we've reached.
I mean, it kind of is, depending on how you think about it. As Mark Kalin takes it 3 wide, along with Hedgecox, along with Kaufman, just about all getting through there. Hedgecox is up 9 positions so far and able to get out of this one cleanly. Mark Kalin, the one losing some time off the corner.
Hedgecock's really hedged his bets there to throw it to the inside. 3 wide with Mark Kalin and the gang. I've been 3 wide with Mark Kalin on Wednesday nights in the Xfinity Series, and I'm sure he feared for his life alongside me as well. I'm surprised they were able to pull that off, but they're still living to fight another day. Gowin's going to try and get around the outside of Kalin here and make that work. We're going to have racing here for the next 35 minutes straight. It is a Le Mans sprint, and it's basically 2 individual categories throwing everything at each other.
And you estimated 14.2 laps for traffic interactions to play its part. We are still very much with 10 minutes complete on cue for what we expect to be a 14 lap affair. Here comes the race leader, Daniel Harris, to the line. Now 3 seconds, Joey, clear of Pat Pelchat.
That is control. That is total control. That is untouchable control. And all Pat Pelchat can do right now is ride in line, drive as fast as humanly possible, and hope that Daniel Harris makes a mistake. That's all he can hope for right now. It looks a little bit like Road Atlanta a couple weeks ago. When Daniel Harris came in, he held the world record for the Cadillac GTP at Road Atlanta. Came into this race, totally dominated, was untouchable, won the race. It's looking a little bit like that again, unless Pat Pelchat can put some pressure on.
That's a car running wide into the Porsche curves. That's not ideal. It's the 50 of Blake Ziti. Kaufman, Gowin squeak on through. Kalin's going to go wide. Just about hangs on to it. And kudos there to Kalin. That could have been a lot worse.
That is the luckiest dog of all time you're seeing right there. The fact that he lost it at that specific place on the track where there is asphalt runoff, where you can save it, he is a very, very lucky boy. You wouldn't be able to tell that he almost just flung an LMP2 car into the wall at 150 miles per hour, though, because he just looks like regular old Mark Kalin. His facial expression hasn't changed.
I tell you what, if it has calmed down slightly, can we go and take a look at some of the webcams? Joshua Chinsky is going to get passed by Mark Kalin, who I think has said, no, please, let me just enjoy my piece for at least a lap or so here. Caleb Lehman with the googly eyes being given no such peace by Jerome Bertillon.
But 1 extra second of lap time is given by those googly eyes. We determined that a couple weeks ago.
Is that scientifically proven?
That is scientifically proven. We submitted it to the Nobel Committee. We didn't win it this year, but we tried.
Okay, I was about to say, did they just reject you flatly out of hand? Here's Jerome Bertillon, by the way. We mentioned there are times down this Mulsanne Straight where you've got not much to do.
Yeah, and then speaking of science, I think Jerome Bertillon's got another theorem here. I think this is the axiom of the rising camera. Every time we used to see Jerome Bertillon, the camera would get higher and higher. It would almost be vertical looking down at him. I think it's getting lower and lower now. We're seeing a lower angle of Jerome. He's just trying to confuse me. He's the head honcho of the PRL. He owns this whole thing, and he's just trying to confuse me with his camera. That's what he's doing.
I mean, to be fair, I do support anything which results in Joey being confused. Now, Mark Kalin, I think, has had an issue. We're on board with Joshua Chinsky. There's Kalin picking up the pieces in the number 62 machine, and we were just talking about what a good save he had just had. Have we commentators cursed him? Or has he done this to himself? Or is Joshua Chinsky going to get involved?
Let's see, into the chicane, and Mark Kalin loops it around. I mentioned that Mark Kalin likes to get a little bit oversteery at times. He likes to hook the rear tires, and that was just an effect of that, carrying too much speed and not being able to save it. There wasn't enough downforce in a slow-speed corner like that to save that. We ride on board with Ryan O'Connor here, though, because the drivers have listened to our demands, Arjuna.
I'm so glad that I posted that little guide as to how to get your virtual reality feed in, and you can just see how calm he is being on the wheel, where the head keeps tilting, much like the G-forces are playing a part as well. And a slow-down penalty. You can just about see the red text. What we cannot see is the frustration for poor Ryan O'Connor.
I was hoping we would see the head kind of bob forward a little bit, like he was banging his head in the steering wheel, but I think he's too cool of a guy to do that. He's going to serve it here, he's going to cross the line, and he's going to be fine. You do have to be careful, by the way. If you do get a slowdown on the final lap, you have to serve it before the line, or else you're going to get put on the end of the lead lap, which will be literally last. Everybody's going to be on the lead lap.
And he's not the only one to do so. Here you see Dave Menino, who is hunting down Zach Hebert in another one of the drivers, giving us the onboard perspective and also making sure to give us a look at the rig itself and the Twitch feed if you want to watch behind the scenes. This is a fascinating little battle for a spot in the top 5.
It's like cam reception. And also he has his cursor on the monitor. We'll forgive him.
That's just how virtual reality sometimes
That's
happens.
fine.
He's gone to the effort. Look at Joey. I mean, the drivers are never going to do it again,
Listen,
Joey.
We were so kind to him because these darn HEBERTs, they've been so confusing to us in the PRL. There's a driver in another series named David, that last name, who pronounces it Abear. There's Zach, that last name in this series. He pronounces it Hebert. Like I said, these drivers, they're just trying to confuse us. They're trying to make us go insane.
Yeah, clearly, as one commentator once said, I'm not saying the name wrong, the parents just have been saying it wrong since the children were born. That is an actual quote from a commentator, not me. There's a SRT eSport car going around. Poor Blake Ziti's just not had a good one of it. That's the slowest part of the track as well. Just picked up gravel on the left side tires, and around she went. Not much could be done there, unfortunately. We now had 3 retirements. Perez D'Amico, Ryan Chandler, both in the LMP2s, and Anthony Dring in the GTPs. But outside of that, everyone else still out there and circulating. As we dive our way in this battle, still now for what is 7th position, Aiden Young leading Michael Diaz and Rafael Russo.
And Diaz is on a little bit of a recovery here after getting a slowdown very early. He dropped to P10, basically, and he's just looking forward now. Still fighting for the championship, still looking for every single point he can get, but he's not looking like the championship result he would want, even if it is P7. He's got a big run here, though. He's got a great run in a straight line. He's coming into Indianapolis and Arnage, though. It's a hard place to send a dive. It's a hard place to make a move unless there's a mistake up ahead. And Diaz is going to have to slot in line and wait just that little while longer because it's so much more difficult to pass in the final sector at Le Mans than it is in the first.
Get the boost out, though, and potentially into the Porsche curves, you can make something happen. This is Mac Miller in the 79. Oh, a little bit too much curve through the second chicane. And does he keep it out of the wall? The Precision Racing Esports car has to do a 3-point turn, but yes, does indeed keep it out of the wall. And then got deposited directly, I think, into a battle, because there comes Bradley Holly in the 184. And if you cycle up a little bit forward in time, I think something bad is going to happen to poor Nicholas Schwartz now.
Oh no, I think he sees Mac Miller right ahead of him. Suddenly he's got a new buddy. He tries to go around the outside, but it's off camber. That's not the racetrack, that's just concrete. It didn't work for him at all. I think Mac Miller, though, he was going to be thinking musically there because he saw Bradley Holly come by unexpectedly. He was going, Wii U, he looks just like Bradley Holly. Wii U, I don't know, Weezer.
Darian Roy now runs in 3rd. They've had a bit of a change in towards Indianapolis and now down towards Arnage. 4.5 seconds off the back of Caleb Lehman, who has very much, lap after lap, been closing on the race leader. 1 second last time at the line at 42, within 3 seconds of the front.
We're starting to see things get into the natural order again after Jeremy Carter may have been slightly inflated in the lead of this race. I don't know. But this is a hot battle as well. Nicholas Goen almost won the race at Watkins Glen last week, was on pole, was very fast, not quite so lucky. He's got Jerome Bertillon behind him. He's got those laser eyes. He's the owner of the Precision Racing League. He controls all this. If he wanted to, he could go to Nicholas Goen's home address and cut his power. So that's the intimidation that Jerome Bertillon has.
I thought you were going to say something else, and then it went down that road. I was like, Jerome would just,
He's an evil mastermind, Arjuna.
I was going to say, get the elbows out, and then tell Arnaud Genet that, it was fine.
Nah, he's gonna cut his power.
He's going to cut his power. Definitely would not afflict the internet of any other fellow drivers either. As much as we joke and laugh around, Jerome spent so much time on the league, keeps it all running, and let's not forget, Sunday through Thursday there is racing, and on all but one of those days there are 2 series with which you can race, and precisionracingleague.com you can learn more with changes to come moving forward into a new calendar year, which is now only about, 4 weeks away from, at least in terms of PRL action being done and dusted for 2023, beckoning down on us. Daniel Harris finally seems as though with 25 minutes or so to go, 20 minutes done. Joey, are those nerves starting to settle in for Daniel Harris now?
I mean, I can only hope so. He's in a very, very large margin over Pat Pelshai. It's 4 seconds now as he rides through Indianapolis and Arnage. There is going to be a pit stop here. The fuel limit kind of requires it. That's basically going to be the only question. Can he get it slowed down on pit lane? Can he avoid getting a speeding penalty? Can he put enough fuel in to make it to the end of the race? Other than that, it is comfortable to the max for Daniel Harris, and he's just having a nice little Le Mans country drive right now, unless he makes a mistake. But he can afford to back off a little bit, keep it consistent, keep it smooth, and he's doing exactly that.
Let's go ahead and take a look on board with Bradley Holly in one of the few Acuras and the best running of the Acura ARX 06s that we have in the field today. Of course, he's always got plenty of things over his shoulder, but you can also take a look literally over his shoulder at the dual screens, giving him plenty of information, including where the traffic is. That doesn't help, though, if you make a mistake down at Arnage and run yourself a little bit wide.
And that tells you can have all the telemetry in the world, but if you make a little bit of an oopsie and throw it off the road, there's nothing you can do. All the telemetry in the world can't help that. And also, Arjuna, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to commentate the rest of this race. I can't see the screen anymore. I've been blinded by the purple sun that Bradley Holly has dragged into his room.
Here, wait. Be blinded by Bradley Holly's fantastic beard instead.
Well, luckily, I can't see him anymore because I'm blind, so it's...
okay.
I can be looking at anybody right now.
You could be looking at anyone. Let's go and look at a car that's just been off the road, and it's Josh Gowen in that number 8 machine. Loses out now to Joshua Chinsky, but... of course, team championship battles, these are valuable points that may be being dropped.
Is that enough Joshes for you? There's quite a few in this field. Here's what happened to Mr. Goen. Very late in the brakes. Too late in the brakes. That almost looks like a driver who lost a little bit of focus and then realized at the last second, oh dear, I should probably start braking. I should probably get slowed down for the Mulsanne corner. And he did. He got lucky that he realized right at the right time, but... it's a big error out of Josh Goen. He's racing for the Ruby team, so his teammate is his brother, Nicholas Goen. Then it's Jack Hedgecox and Chip Michaels on the other team. They only have Jack Hedgecox here today, so this is going to be a good day for the Ruby squad.
Of course, that team championship, something that realistically, until we get to the end of the season, we are getting a better picture now, but will be even clearer heading into the final round, which, of course, I do believe, if I remember correctly, is at the Red Bull Ring. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, closing into the final couple of corners is the 88 machine, but Darian Roy does not crack under the pressure in the Precision Racing Esports car as we work to the line. Like I said, 20 minutes complete, 23 minutes to go. Realistically, you could come down to pit lane now, Joey, if you wanted to. But the strategy in most PRL events, run the car as dry as you can.
Yeah, it's going to keep the lap times down. The tire change isn't going to happen. It would simply take too long with the short pit stop you need to have here. So the undercut basically doesn't exist. And there's not going to be any traffic really either that you're going to have to worry about. So I think you're going to see every single driver here essentially come in on exactly the same lap after that fuel tank has been run dry. This is a good little perspective here from Aiden Young from the front, looking out the back at a very large snake and train of drivers. Michael Diaz, Dave Menino, Rafael Russo. It's not a comfortable day to be Aiden Young right now. He's had pressure put on him for the first 20 minutes of this race, and he hasn't cracked.
And it's showing no sign of stopping. Young has worked his way up 7 spots after a slightly disappointing performance in qualifying, and Joey called out Michael Diaz with the slowdown penalty early doors, has his own recovery drive still brewing as well. Menino, Russo in pursuit, 7 seconds up the road to Zach Hebert, who is, slowly closing in on Boris Ovando. Top 5, at least for the time being, somewhat stagnant, somewhat separated. Daniel Harris just building that margin up towards the front. The commitment through these Porsche curves, especially with no GT machines to worry about. We can't speak highly enough to how much these drivers are throwing the cars in and hoping that they stick. But into this final little sequence, it's a lot simpler, it's a lot easier, and pit stops are underway. Pelchat will lead down a handful of the Cadillac V-Series GTP machines.
Yeah, it's not been everybody coming down pit lane at the same time, but it has been the majority of the field. Diaz was later on the brakes on pit entry there. He was almost side by side with Aiden Young, but everybody except for Harrison Hopkins is in. It is a very popular time to come down to the pits, and I have a feeling you're going to see pretty much identical pit stops from everybody here. There's definitely a little bit of fuel saving for some of those drivers in the train, but it's not going to matter very much. They're going to be filling these tanks to the end. There's going to be gaps, I think, between Pelchat and Ovando and Hebert, and it'll be an all-out sprint to the finish.
That is going to be a very fascinating thing to see, given that Daniel Harris, Colin Hopkins, and Ryan O'Connor all went one lap longer. It's a long lap. You might also have a much shorter pit stop that you can get away with, depending on how much fuel you brought into the box. Pelchat, of course, as expected, will be the first to roll off. 27.7 seconds stationary. Leaves the pit lane, and Jeff Evans, who has also not pitted, comes out directly behind and crucially does not disturb the 919. Ovando, Hebert also off and away, and with the margins held relatively stagnant to Aiden Young.
It's kind of a weird position to be in. Somehow Jeff Evans has fallen back, I think, 60 seconds from Daniel Harris under green flag conditions, and that puts an awkward thing for Boris Ovando to deal with right ahead of him. He's got to get by him on track for position. I can't imagine it'll be too difficult. Jeff is a courteous driver. I think he knows he's not fighting for the top 5 right now. If it does come to that, he'll be able to let Ovando by pretty easily. He's got the draft to Pat Pelchat to hold on to at the very least, but I think he's not quite on the lap times of Ovando here, and he'll probably have to let him by likely after the chicane.
You can see the pit stop times left side of the screen. Now Michael Diaz, that's a timing anomaly. You can infer, though, from the pit lane time that he was around 27.5 seconds, so actually about a second slower than Aiden Young. Has not allowed Young, though, to crucially break the toe. Young and Diaz still very much locked in battle. You can kind of see them snaking back and forth just at the back of your shot, with Menino and Russo still very much in their trails as well. The pit stop cycle hasn't broken up these 4 machines.
This is Michael Diaz's chance. He's finally got the opportunity to take a peek on Aiden Young. He's to the inside, but it's very difficult to outbrake somebody into the chicanes at Le Mans. He was not able to do it, wasn't able to commit quite enough. He's going to wait until the end of the Mulsanne straight and go for it in a little bit of a tighter corner where it is easier to outbrake someone. Nicholas Gowen and Darian Roy, though, they've been having that same battle through these chicanes. They're still throwing everything at each other.
And Jerome Bertillon is down on pit lane, so you can now see the LMP2 pit cycle beginning as well. There's so much happening all around the track. Diaz and Young side by side, and out of Mulsanne corner, it's the fiercely forward car that gets a better drive, uses the hybrid to get the momentum down onto the tarmac. And as Boris Ovando gets in front of Jeff Evans just down the road in front of them, these 4 drivers all know they are very much fighting with one another. Daniel Harris, though, a dominant opening 25 minutes down to pit lane.
And this is kind of the first time he's actually seen a car in his rearview mirror. He sees Colin Hopkins behind him, but they're still throwing it at each other. They're both off the road. Both Young and Diaz throw it off the road, and that's going to let Dave Menino come through. He's going to be clear of Young into the braking zone. Dave Menino makes a mistake himself, though. He also throws it off the road.
Championship implications there as well. Menino will drop behind Ciramello and potentially behind Nick Silver as well. Aiden Young has the whole shot, though, out of that slowest corner up in toward the Porsche curves. Russo on the outside, Diaz up the inside, and I tell you what, that L1 Esports car was having none of it. Did not want to fight, did not want to lose any sort of time. In terms, though, of all the fighting that we've seen, will this help Colin Hopkins as he waits to roll off a pit lane? Pat Pelchat has just cantered out of the final corner. It will be close into turn number 1.
Be very close. Hopkins gets on the throttle. He's pushing as hard as he can, but Pelchat's coming at a full head of steam. Hopkins is able to jump him, but those tires are going to be a little bit colder. He was sitting in the box for almost 30 seconds, not stationary, while Pelchat's got a full head of steam on him. He's got to get a run out of Tertre Rouge here if he wants to have a shot on Colin Hopkins. He's got to be quick here. He's got to stay within touch, or else it might be a fiercely forward 1-2 to the end of this race.
And what a strategy call it has been from them to be able to leapfrog their way to where they sit right now. Back with Hedgecox on his recovery drive after, well, the lack of a qualifying time. 11 positions gained. Doug Sorrentino is 10 positions gained directly in front. But now, just waiting to come down to pit lane, Hedgecox has just got to hope that he can keep things clean for the next 16 or so minutes.
It's a little bit of LMP2 French rallycross, though. They're clipping the grass through the final corners. They're off the road just a little bit. Sorrentino is at the very least. It is an all-out battle between these two. They're throwing everything at each other. They have to think about the incident limit, though, and Jack Hedgecox thinks about pitting. He says, I'm getting held up. I'm getting too many incident points. I'm running off the road. I might as well bring it down here. Let Sorrentino go around one more lap, and I'll join everybody else in the pits.
There are plenty of LMP2 cars making their pit stop, including Jeremy Carter and Caleb Lehman from the very front. It's only Doug Sorrentino that will actually stay out inside of the top 10 in class, it would seem, as Pelchat still chasing down Hopkins. Ovando 1.8 off the back of them. He's lost the draft. He is not, I repeat, in contention right now. There's Jeremy Carter. The 124 has been leading so far. Caleb Lehman's going to be rolling off and away. 19.6 seconds for the 124. And 20.3 for Nicholas Goen. 20.0 for Caleb Lehman.
It's pretty straightforward stuff all around, but this is going to be the battle to the end of the race. GTP, that's basically resolved. 9 seconds separate those two. Jeremy Carter and Caleb Lehman, though, there's only 3 seconds between them coming out of the pits. It was as low as 1.7 seconds when they were battling before this pit cycle. Caleb Lehman could very well win this race if he can close things down to Jeremy Carter. He needs to get pushing, though, as there's only about 5 laps to go in this race now.
And so, look around the track. Plenty of drivers still with things to fight for, including, of course, Hopkins, Pelchat, and you'll see Ovando just behind them as well, out of Arnage, under that Porsche bridge, into maybe the most committed section of the track. Similarly young, Diaz, 6th and 7th on the line between the two of them. So much fighting that they'll be thinking about. Ciarmello, Ryan O'Connor. They've got the potential for a good top 10 finish on the line for them as well. Not sure what happened to Jerome Bertium, though, because if you go back over to the LMP2 class, Darian Roy and Nicholas Goen still somewhat close together. Bertium a long pit stop, Joey, and now outside of the top 10 in class.
I bet Nicholas Goen heard what I said about Jerome using his intimidation tactics, and karma hit Jerome. Somebody went and cut his power. That's how he lost a minute, because I have no idea what happened to him. He's just fallen out of this fight. His teammate Darian Roy, though, he's got some great straight line speed in that car. He's got to the inside of Nicholas Goen. That's going to give him the inside into the second chicane, but again, go in later on the brakes. He's got the downforce. He's got the braking power. He's able to hold on for a couple more seconds until the repeat happens again, and the straight line gives Roy the advantage again.
It's just going to go back and forth, isn't it? That's kind of what we expect. And as they try to build up some temperature still into their tires, let's not forget they have just come out of pit lane as well. That is a bit of a factor for them to be considering. Not going to be the opportunity to pass down in towards that corner, and indeed the 211 holds back in line for now, tries to get the power down. These LMP2 cars so much driven at the rear, especially on power down, and even with the power reduction that they've seen in the last 2 years or so, there's still a handful to control. Darian Roy in the draft, but seemingly not closing, getting closer and closer to Indianapolis. Now the slipstream starts to play its games.
It's hard to make a move into Indianapolis, but if he has enough of a run, he can think about it. Nicholas Goen, though, ahead of him, just blocking every lane on the inside, on the outside, able to hold them off. It's kind of it's just a Le Mans thing to happen. It's a little bit like a French fruit bowl. Some people want to be as slippery as a banana. Some people want to be higher downforce. They want to be grippier like an orange. And they meet in the most inconvenient places. And it makes these battles so frustrating, especially when you're the driver behind. You're so much faster in a straight line. And all the places it matters, you can't get ahead.
Well, I think I figured out what happened to poor Jerome Bertium. Should we spool up the all-seeing, never-missing RaceSpotTV replay machine? And, well, Joey, watch here. You see the cones, those yellow boards, or yellow cones with the boards next to them. That's the limiter line. Only now does Bertium get the limiter on.
Oh, dear. That's not ideal. And now that you've shown that, Arjuna, you know the Godfather Jerome is gonna see this, and he's gonna make sure you're never on a PRL broadcast again. You've brought shame to the family.
Well, can we cycle back time? What's that thing from Harry Potter that Hermione has in the Prisoner of Azkaban?
I don't even know. I also don't know how it's taken me this long to start making Jerome the leader of the Mafia. It's taken me too long. This is great. They're going to pick this up as a movie option.
As the voice of the PRL, you're the one that's going to have to worry. I think that Jerome's going to get concerned that allegations are going to get thrown his way about how Precision Racing League's a mafia.
Hey, you don't want to mess with the family.
That sounded more pirate than anything, Joey. Can we have another try at that?
I watched a Martin Scorsese movie over the weekend, so I'm just thinking about the Mafia.
Ah, okay. Oh, Bertium's wide! Caleb's gone around as well. Oh, it's all come to blows for 14th spot.
Oh, dear. Cars all over the place. There's Doug Evans as well, who I think may have just been around for the ride. He just may have been an innocent bystander there, but that is that's a very, very inconvenient spot to run into a fellow driver. Here is what happened. Bertiom and Kalen on the inside, Jerome on the outside. It looks like it was actually two separate spins. Jerome goes off the road outbraking himself. Mark spins himself a little bit after, and I was right. Doug Evans right ahead just didn't do anything. He just got to drive away. He was an innocent bystander while everybody else went silly mode behind him.
Okay, to be fair, they both did completely miss their braking markers and both carried way too much momentum into the corner.
And I guarantee Doug was losing his mind laughing behind him when he saw that in his mirrors.
Yeah, I can only imagine the cackling that came over the radio there. This is, of course, fight for third. Darian Roy still representing that Precision Racing Esports banner right now, hunting down that number 88 machine. Again, there is so much going on, though. If we cycle back on board with Kyle Strykars over the shoulder of the 07, as he's running right behind Blake Seaty, again, another driver, having a recovery drive today.
It's been in all recovery drives all throughout the field. Nobody has had a normal race other than Daniel Harris up in the lead of this thing. Kyle Strykars, though, in line, looking to the inside, looking to the outside, and then eventually realizing none of those are going to work for me. I'm going to have to slot back in line here, and I'm going to have to wait a little bit while longer to get by my teammate because straight line speed's not there for Strykars while it is for his teammate.
Still fight to close potentially on Eric Harmon as well. Let's not discount that, given what a wild race that we've seen. You can never say never. And in that vein, back up to second, Pat Pelchat, who's closed what at one point had gone to as large as a 2.5 second margin on the fiercely forward number 19 championship leader, under pressure once more, and with some traffic in front of them as they swapped around for third just as we look away. Darian Roy has a podium spot.
He does. I think it might have been a mistake out of go-in. He's lost about 3 seconds in the space of 2 corners, and he's lost the podium, and he's put himself under pressure from Sorrentino and Hedgecock's right behind. It's all looking good for Nicholas Goen, and now his life is so much more difficult. Here it is. Through Indianapolis, everything was fine. Then through Arnage, too late in the brakes, locks it up, throws it off the road, and that's how you lose one podium spot. He had to slow down to get back in line there, and he's very much in danger of losing P5 and P6 with Sorrentino and Hedgecock's right behind him.
Yeah, they have closed it. I mean, what a drive from Sorrentino, Hedgecock's. Double-digit gains for the both of them. Same for Josh Goen as well. So it's been a dramatic race once again, and some drivers have taken advantage. Checked up through Arnage. Hopkins and Pelchat scamper off the corner, and with some, I think, LMP2 traffic not posing too much of a threat between the two of them. Is it going to be closing up into towards the Porsche curve? Ciramello and O'Connor have swapped around behind. But there's the look, the half look from Pelchat, the willingness to try and get on through.
That was scary. That was very scary. I think there was a nose to the inside and nothing more for Pat Pelchat. It was an opportunistic move because he knows there's only going to be 3 laps to the line. He needs to go for a move when he can. That was not the move to make, though. But you see, there's Mark Kalen. The figure I said about 14 laps, that's assuming that everybody was doing qualifying speed. If you've been making mistakes like Kalen, you're going to reach that or be reached by that GTP traffic much earlier. And these guys have a lot more to contend with some of those LMP2 stragglers.
And as we look at the replay for Jack Hedgecock's for Doug Sorrentino, bit of a loop for the both of them as they tried to work in through turns 1, 2, and 3. Has lost them some momentum, but fortunately not too many positions. They'll be at least happy with that, all things considered. And as Pelchat continues to try and chase down those in front, Ryan O'Connor now in front of Ciramello and Menino. 3 more drivers, Joey, with, what, 2 more laps maybe? 3 more laps to figure things out?
3 more laps. I'm going to tell Hedgecock and Sorrentino, by the way, the Olympics aren't until next year in Paris. You guys are doing the synchronized swimming too early.
Is it always this crazy and chaotic on a Monday?
Generally.
Okay, so that's why DJ had to take 2 weeks away to just rest his mind, to calm himself down as, oh, that's a mistake, I think, from an LMP2 car. Not going to slow down any of these drivers filing through Tetra Rouge. If I can get my words out there and from out of my lips. Here's, once again, Sorrentino and Hedgecock's down at the end of the Mulsanne Straight.
Why not? Might as well take a look at them again, see if they do anything funny. Hedgecock's wide out of the Mulsanne corner. Sorrentino within the draft again. And we might just be about to see the same exact thing we already saw, because Sorrentino's going to get an attempt to get some revenge to get back by. And he might be able to be later on the brakes, but either way, even with that little bit of an embarrassing moment, it's been a great day for both of these guys. 10 spots up for Hedgecock, 9 spots up for Sorrentino. These are, well, Hedgecock is going to be fighting for the championship. Sorrentino only made his first race last week, so he's a little bit too late to fight for the championship. These guys are both really showing how good they are, though.
I mean, for Hedgecock, this is one of those races that will probably define the championship, right? From starting down there in 17th spot to continuing the streak of top 5. No, it's not Sean Campbell 100% victories, but 100% top 5s, being able to accumulate those points and starting off the second half of the campaign with a really, really nice result.
Here comes Michael Diaz again, the Diaz and Young show. It's not over, and Diaz is pretty quick in a straight line. Can he be quicker on the brakes, though? That's been the ultimate dilemma for him. He needs to be later on the brakes. He needs to get by Aiden Young in a braking zone, not in a straight line. He's highly committed, but he's too late in the brakes. He's gonna make the corner, but Young's gonna be able to switch it back. He gets a little bit of oversteer himself, though, and Michael Diaz does get through. It's a combination of mistakes for both of them, and the commitment for Diaz is what won him out there.
I was doing a few laps in these GTP machines over the weekend, and the thing that stood out to me, no matter what track that you drive at, just the level of commitment that you require. We talk about it so much, but it's because, Joey, they are slower than the LMP1 cars that effectively they have replaced at the top level of global motorsports as Young loses some time in traffic, and Diaz wasn't hanging around, builds the margin up once more, but because they are slightly slowed down, we are running, what, 321s, 322s, when we would be running low 310s, 311s in the LMP1 machines. You do have to find yourself extracting every bit of performance around the track.
It is a very difficult car to master, every single aspect of it, from the technical aspects, from all the buttons on the steering wheel you can play with, from your brake bias to the energy deployment to everything, and just as a car itself. It is so difficult, and at Le Mans it's exceptionally difficult, because you need to make the car so slippery. You need to be so good on these miles and miles, or kilometers and kilometers of straight lines, I should say. And you also need to somehow find the grip to succeed in the final sector through the Porsche curves and through the first sector as well. I don't envy any of the setup builders. I don't envy any of the drivers. There's a reason this is known as the ultimate challenge of the racing world.
And I've got to say that at the front of our respective two classes, as we take a look at the leaders, top and bottom, they've done a fantastic job. There's no two ways about it. You were talking about Daniel Harris, all those pole positions, no victories to speak of it. He's finally put it together, and sometimes you just need one result, Joey, and it suddenly clicks. From here, Harris will build up the confidence. He'll feel like he's going to be able to convert more of these results, and so when we head to tracks where traffic's going to be more of a factor, Daniel Harris might be one to be stood up and to be counted.
Ooh, he almost just lost it himself there out of the chicane. He was able to save it, but it's been such a weird season for Daniel Harris. It started at Indianapolis, put it on pole, looked like he was going to easily win the race until he got taken out by an LMP2 car that got punted in front of him. Then the week after, it was Fuji. He got taken out before the race even started in a little bit of an argument in the start procedure. Then the week after that, he spun himself at Spa from the lead. Then the week after that at Road Atlanta, where he has the world record, he finally won. He finally kind of got the duck off his back. And then immediately after at Watkins Glen, didn't start on pole for the first time, had to deal with cars in traffic for the first time, and made contact with his teammate and had the worst race of his season. Now suddenly he's back up at the top, and maybe this will be the way that his season finally gets back on track. But it's been very up and down. Hopefully this is the final up.
We'll watch Pelchat chasing down Hopkins for second in class, but let's, again, Jeremy Carter. We haven't looked at him much like we didn't look at either of the leaders in our previous race with the LMP3s and GT4s. However, has held Caleb Lehman at the margin after the pit stops, and that's all that he needed to do. Had built up the advantage, almost like magic, like you said, Joey. Currently one lap away from victory here at maybe one of the most historic tracks to have a victory at in any racing series.
And you know who's going to be proudest of Jeremy Carter 5? I think Jeremy Carter 1, Jeremy Carter 2, Jeremy Carter 3, and Jeremy Carter 4. They're all going to be so excited to see that.
They had to walk before, I guess.
They did. They were all there supporting him, and they're going to be so happy. But he still has to survive for one more lap. He's done a good job of holding back Caleb Lehman. It's been about a 4-second margin for the entirety of this second stint, but he's still gotta survive one more lap. And Lamont can always bite at times you least expect. As did I just cut to him throwing it off the road right as I said that.
We did. He's lost about a second and a half, but no harm, no foul as we start the final lap of the race. Jeremy Carter still leads, but it's now by only 2.6 seconds, Joey.
And when those mistakes start to happen, they can stack up, especially on the final lap. You start to get a little bit spooked. And he might be in more danger than we think. Hedgecox and Sorrentino, though, they're still side by side. Speaking of danger, there's too much danger back here.
They get it sorted before Tetra Rouge, importantly, though, and now it's Hedgecox in the draft. He'll slingshot his way down onto the Mulsanne, and these are important moments for everybody through the field, of course. Jeremy Carter hoping to hold on at the very front of the field. Colin Hopkins looking to hold on to second as the GTP fight for second is on to Tetra Rouge as well on the final lap. But Hedgecox up the inside, the championship leader, trusts Sorrentino to give him room and gets on through in the first chicane.
Yes, he does. I think that's Aiden Young behind, who's on the road to get by. There we go. Easy doing. Actually, I think that may be the race leader, Daniel Harris, who's just gotten through there. And Sorrentino's going to try and steal some draft off of him. And he's going to have a grand old time getting maybe back by Jack Hedgecox, stealing some GTP draft. Hedgecox kind of figures out what's going on there and gets back in the line himself as well. And they're both going to get a little bit of help until that GTP runs away through the chicane.
You've also got the battle now that Zach Hebert, who's been able to close on Boris Ovando. Not sure where Ovando has lost so much time, other than maybe has not put enough fuel into that car. And so there is a very, very real possibility that down in towards the second chicane, we'll see a swap around. Ovando not going to be able to do too much at some point, you think, but holds on for now.
I don't think he's going to be short on fuel. He was in the box for basically the same amount of time as Pelshaw. Jack Hedgecox again, too late in the brakes into the Mulsanne corner, and loses out to Sorrentino again. It's just been who can make the least mistakes in this battle. And right now, Jack's hoping that Sorrentino makes the final mistake. They're still side by side in this battle as well, because Ovando's still fighting with everything he has.
Hebert around the outside and trying to switch it back, but look at how confident Ovando on the power was to get his car off the corner. And now time running out for these drivers as they run their way into the closing stages. That can be said, though, up and down through the field. Daniel Harris is heading in towards the Porsche curves for the final time of asking, and he's just getting past Darian Roy and Nicholas Goen in their fight for the final step of the podium.
And that's going to mean that this battle is going to be much shorter than it would have been otherwise. Lehman and Carter, they're going to have to go around for a whole nother lap. But as Daniel Harris gets by these two, they're going to be done this race.
And does that decide things as well? Because the Porsche curves maybe one passing opportunity, but into the final sector, the 88 still close enough, and Joey will try and get a move done.
He's got a couple of corners to go. Harris is going to cross the line here to take the win. There's got to be one final dive from Goen. This is his last chance.
It might be too little too late, and indeed it's going to be a desperation lunge. They'll clatter over the curves. They'll make their way to the line, but it's Daniel Harris that finally gets the monkey off his back, victorious in the Precision Racing League GTP LMP2 Challenge, and by wait, what?
He lost the race.
Did he just give the win to his teammate?
Yep.
Well,
championship leader Colin Hopkins gets the win given from his teammate. I don't think that's going to be very popular with the rest of the field.
It's definitely going to cause a stir. We've seen plenty of sporting moments here on Precision Racing League days when it comes to championship stories. We'll see what the virtual paddock has to say about that one. Because of that as well, Darian Roy and Nicholas Goen will have to go around for an entire another lap, but I don't think the two of them were aware of that, Joey.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that. So they've got to keep going. Jeremy Carter has lost the lead to Caleb Lehman, by the way. Is he out of fuel?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to say.
these guys would have had to go around another time anyway. This wasn't Daniel Harris's fault. Carter and Lehman were both ahead of Daniel Harris before anything happened, but both of these guys seem to be in danger with the fuel. Lehman's slow, Carter's slow. Are either of these guys going to make it to the end?
Lehman is at least a little bit faster than Jeremy Carter right now. But have you ever, we're in, effectively, a fuel mileage lap to see who gets the checkered flag first. And Jack Hedgecox as well is still in play here.
Yeah, I mean, have fun, Jack. You've got an extra lap here. You may get an extra point in the championship as well. If it's any solace for Jeremy Carter, he's only going to lose down to P5. I'm at a loss for words because it's so silly. But Jeremy Carter, he's just hoping that he can maybe find a nice French fan off the side of the road to get some siphoned fuel in the tank there, because it's not gone well for him here.
And as you look on the replay, that's Aiden Young. Remember what a charge that we saw from him, Joey? He finishes this race in 16th position after running out mere meters before the line.
Oh, and Doug Evans doesn't even help him. What a... Oh, come on, Doug. You could have helped him out there. You could have given him a little bit of a push. But there's the heartbreak for Jeremy Carter. He had this race won, but he wasn't going to make it to the end anyway, because he was ahead of Harris at the line. And he was... yeah, this has just all gone wrong for a guy who looked like he was going to win his first race. It'll give him some confidence coming into the future if he's able to have this pace again. He may be able to get his first win before the end of the season. But this is heartbreaking. He's got the championship leader coming by now.
There comes Jack Hedgecox. Unfortunate, just the timing of the fact that the leader wasn't able to wrap around and get to the entirety of the LMP2 traffic. Ultimately, still a top 5. It's going to be great. It's Caleb Lehman, though, with the googly eyes. That's going to come through the final sector and get ready to see the checkered flag and to win in this LMP2 class here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Goodness, it's taken another 4 minutes beyond where we thought we'd see the winners be crowned, and Caleb Lehman has lost it.
Turn it around, loop it around. Nicholas Gowen's coming, but he's about 8 seconds behind. Caleb probably pooped himself there, but as he crosses the line, he does get the win. And what happened in this race, Arjuna? Are we in France or are we in Australia? Because it feels like we're upside down right now.
And now some relief. Oh, as Darren Roy scored in front of Jack Hedgecox. It was just a momentary blip on the timing that got me even more confused. Because, yeah, I have absolutely no idea. We'll have to talk to the drivers. Jeremy Carter across the line. And like I said earlier, have you ever?
My goodness.
We'll quickly look at the results so that we can head down into post-race interviews. Colin Hopkins, the points leader, grabs the victory, although maybe a slightly controversial one. Daniel Harris scored a second after finally proving that it's not just in qualifying he's got speed, but in the race as well. Pat Pelshat third, in front of Boris Avando. Zach Hebert, who did not swap around on the final lap. Michael Diaz takes advantage of Aiden Young's fuel issues to grab 6th in front of Rafael Russo, Ryan O'Connor, Dave Menino, and Felipe Ciarmello. Down in 11th, still on the leading lap though for Mac Miller, Brett Thurman, and then Bradley Hawley, Jeff Evans, and Nick Silver all on the leading lap. Aiden Young didn't make it to the line, 1 lap down for him, 2 laps down for Nicholas Schwartz, while Anthony Dring scored as the only DNF in the GTP contingent. Over in your LMP2 class, it's Caleb Lehman that grabs his first non-Pro-Am win, according to Joey, with a 4-second delta in what ended up being the fuel mileage game. Nicholas Gowen second in what was a good day for Gowen Racing in the team championship. Darian Roy third, and then Jack Hedgecox, a remarkable 14 positions gained after slightly bottling it in qualifying. Jeremy Carter just misses out on his first victory. He'll be slightly frustrated, but an impressive showing from him nonetheless, while Doug Sorrentino, the first of many drivers, classified 1 lap down just by virtue of the overall leader getting in front of those behind. Josh Gowen, Chase Kaufman, Joshua Chinsky, and then Eric Harmon round out the top 10, with still finishing the race the likes of Carl Strykars, Blake Ziti, and Jerome Bertillon. We've got a penalty after speeding in pit lane. Doug Evans, Mark Kalin, Chris Rabel, and Alexander Good and Brian Hoskins 1 lap down, with Giovanni Perez D'Amico, Ryan Chandler, as well as Damian Benke classified as DNFs. here today. We, as ever, are very, very eager to head down to the drivers to chat through the race. And, well, standing by with our points leader, it's Colin Hopkins chatting with Joey Tebben.
Indeed I am. Well, Colin Hopkins, the obvious question here, coming to the line, did you expect to win that race?
We were talking before, depending on the gap of Pat behind, and I wasn't sure if he was going to do it or not, but he's out of the championship points running, so he gave me the position to give me the points for the championship.
Some teammates working together there. We do only have 4 rounds to go in the championship now. You are still in the lead of the championship. How much pressure is on you in these final 4 weeks to take this win in your first GTP season?
Definitely a little bit of pressure. We had some great battle, and we caught some LMP2s towards the end of that race. Made a really great battle for me and Pat towards the end, so looking forward to more close races like that.
I'm sure you are. Colin, congrats on that first win in the PRL, and we'll see you next week. See if you can go 2 for 2.
Thank you for having me.
Colin Hopkins coming home with his first win in the PRL, and I think we'll, what do you think, Arjuna? We talk to his teammate next. Indeed we do. Daniel Harris, looked like you were going to have the dominant win for the second time this season, but with 1 corner to go, you gave it to your teammate Colin Hopkins. Talk us through the thought process.
Not much really thought to it. I'm well out of the championship and Colin's leading, and just thought I'd help him out as much as I can. So had 14-second lead or something, and was fuel saving the start of the race. Told Colin to do the same, and that overcut I think definitely helped him out. So it was really a no-brainer in my mind.
So this gives us kind of an idea into the thought process of the team. You guys are still fighting for the team's championship. You've had some bad luck at the start of the season. How much fiercely forward do you think you can move by the end of the season and maybe still fight for the team's championship?
Yeah, we're going to give it a go. There was a bit of thought with a couple of teammates pulling out that we might go single team, but we haven't decided whether we're going to converge onto one team or just all go together. But yeah, hoping Colin can bring home that championship. There's a couple of good races. Sebring will be a good one next week.
Well, Daniel, very fast today. Congrats on the podium, and we'll see you in the team next week.
Thank you, guys.
Daniel Harris coming home in second at the end of that all, but we do have our winner in LMP2. It's the googly eyes master himself, Caleb Lehman. I have an obvious question for you as well, Caleb. What were you thinking in the final corner there when it almost all went wrong?
I was trying to coast because I was almost out of fuel, so it threw off my braking point, and I binned it on the curbs and went into the sand. Luckily, I was able to had enough fuel to get out and get back on the track. So
yeah, I'm sure none of the words you were thinking there are broadcastable when that was happening. But this is your first win, not in a Pro-Am series in the PRL. Your other win was in AM in GT3. How good does that feel to finally get your second win technically, but your first non-Pro-Am win in the PRL?
It feels great. It feels great. I was not looking forward to this race at all. I just could not find the pace, and something clicked with the setup tonight, and just felt good. So I'm really happy.
It's the power of the googly eyes. Congrats, Caleb, on the win. Keep those googly eyes going, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Caleb Lehman, your winner in LMP2. Next up, we've got, I'd say let's get third place. Let's get the podium sitter, guy who's fighting for the championship in GTP, Pat Pelshaw. It was actually closer than we were expecting. Pat Pelshaw. Sorry, we're getting all confused here. Pat on the podium at the end of it all. That was closer than you expected to the finish, though.
Yes, it was. I think they ran a pretty aggressive fuel strategy, and we went pretty conservative. Honestly, P3, I'll take it this week. I don't think I had the preparation I usually do, so I came in here with a bit of an unknown and just not sure where I was going to end up, but it's not too bad. P3, I'll take it.
Well, Pat, congrats on the podium. Another good result for the Precision Racing Esports. We'll see you next week as well.
Yep, thank you very much.
Pat Pelshaw rounding out the podium in GTP, and that rounds out just total craziness here, Arjuna. I've used up all my words. I don't think I have any left. I guess we just got to look forward to next week now.
It is a trip over to the very, very bumpy Sebring International Raceway for these drivers in the GTP LMP2 series. We talked about setup challenges. This is its own unique setup behemoth of a challenge. The bumps, of course, mean that a relatively inefficient aerodynamic platform is what you have. It's the drivers that can tame the suspension, get the most planted feeling out of each of the corners, and can be the most committed through the likes of Turn 1, Sunset Bend, those high-speed sweepers, Joey, that will come out on top.
Gotta respect the bumps. We always talk about it. We saw so many mistakes here at a track that's kind of paper smooth in places. There's not a lot of huge bumps like at Sebring, at Le Mans. You've got to get used to that next week, though. You've got to do a similar thing with the setups of matching the straight lines in the corners. It's yet another ultimate challenge, and if today's anything to go by, who knows what we can predict next week.
Exactly. And after that, Temple of Speed, America's National Park of Speed, and then a trip up into the Styrian Mountains. That's what lies ahead, of course, all on the way to November 20th and to crown 2 more champions here in the Precision Racing League. What a fun journey that we still have in front of us to go. For now, though, it is time, unfortunately, to say goodbye once more. The action will continue here on RaceSpotTV with more Precision Racing League coverage, so don't forget to stay subscribed and to stay connected to all that's going on in the world of the Precision Racing League. For now, though, we bid you farewell. For Joey Tebb and alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you for joining us through a tale of 2 races, one at the Circuit of the Americas, one at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Across the ponds, but 2 very chaotic races and 4 very deserving winners taking steps in their championship pictures. We'll see you next time, but for now, it is so long and goodbye.